All right, let's call to order the December 12th, 2024 meeting of the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board. To conduct this meeting, there are a few procedural items we have to go through. I see at this moment, Dana, we still don't have Mr. Ali, so we won't worry about audibility, but if he does join, we'll vote to confirm that situation. That being said, before the meeting starts, we do have public comment time limitations. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment at consent agenda items as well as each action item as is ARB standard practice. So I would entertain a motion to set that time limit.
Mr. Chairman, I move that each member of the public have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. All right, notification to everyone here. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted online with roughly about 10 days. And last but not least, we always start our meetings with the readings of statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts, and Mr. Zellman has graciously agreed to do so.
Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zellman. All right, so the order for which items will be heard was set at the meeting with the approval of the agenda. Additional items may be added to the agenda at the discretion of the chair. Applicants here for initial or follow-up presentations need to submit their documentation and drawings as appropriate to the ARB prior to the meeting, which the ARB members do have in their receipt from the files that has been provided to us by staff. I will highlight, though, if members have not received such documentation, that may postpone an application to a future meeting if that is not there. So keep that in mind. I'll also remind applicants to limit your presentation time, so your actual presentation on the application, to 8 minutes if this is your first submission, and to 3 minutes if this is a resubmission, focusing on resubmissions, what changes have been made to the project since the last time before the ARB. All right, with all that out of the way, I would entertain an approval of the agenda. Mr. Kalinsky.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve the agenda for the December 12th, 2024 ARB meeting.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. We have an agenda. All right, introduction and recognition of guests. Daniel? Nope. Saying no, we don't have any other than folks who are here for a reason. Obviously, thank you, Mr. Plumpy, for bringing the cookies for folks that have availed themselves of some. So happy holidays to all who are here. And we'll try to make this an efficient meeting. First on the agenda is we do not have any items for consent calendar. So that takes us right on to items for action. Our first item for action is ARB 24 HOL 31 2404 Elba Creek Deck Project. This is located in the Holland Hill Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the construction of a deck, and Mr. Anthony Calabero represents the application.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir, the podium is yours. Oh, Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns has to read his statement. And you can still head up.
This will just take a second. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD, and specifically state the following for the December 12th, 2024 ARB meeting. 1. Action items ARB 24 HOL 31, 2404 Elba Court Deck, and ARB 24 HOL 25, 2405 Nemeth Court Edition, and workshop item ARB 24 HOL 32 WS 2205 Glasgow Road roof-mounted solar panels involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOV. I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction, and I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. All right, Mr. Calabro, it's your floor is yours.
Okay. All right. So I do represent the homeowner. My name is Anthony. I'm with HC Exteriors. And what we're proposing is to build a deck that is on the south side, which is actually closest to the street, on the residence. It is replacing the area where an existing deck was. The existing deck has already been removed. We're replacing it or building a new 14 by 14 deck structure with 4 steps down to grade. It's going to be a pressure treated wood deck frame with a composite decking material in what's called weathered oak. It is a grayish material with a aluminum railing with a cable link system in between. This before us is just a sample of the railing. That's how they come. But this would be the color for the decking boards, the stairs, the fascia board around the deck, and also the rail cap as well.
All right. Thank you very much. So first, I would ask if there's any member of the public that has a comment on this item up for review. Being none, I would look to my members of the board for any comments or questions they might have. Mr. Kalinsky.
Just if I could get some clarifications.
Sure.
When was the existing deck removed? So recent removal, or is it had been a long time, or?
That I'm not sure. I don't have the time frame on that.
The rail sample that you have has
Yes.
intermediate
Supporting,
intermediate post,
yes,
and the drawings show 7-foot sections of rail without any intermediate posts. What's
It would be.
going to be?
it would be one intermediate support in between.
3.5 feet of rail and then an intermediate support, and then
Correct. They don't show that on the drawing because this isn't tied to the framing structure of the deck. It just goes from the bottom rail to the top rail. So that's why they don't show it in the framing plan.
I mean, I think it's obvious it's necessary to correct the horizontal wires from sagging
Mhm.
as part of this. Okay. Ideally, what's drawn on the deck is accurately represents what gets built, to help us gauge, whether this is appropriate or not. What's the color of the posts?
White,
That color there,
correct. It's a white. This one's a gloss, but the finish would be a matte finish. It
finish?
wouldn't be shiny, but it would still be a white finish.
Okay.
And then the rail or the cable itself would be this color.
Same, yes, stainless, okay. All right, those are my, well, one more question, and maybe it's on here, the height of the rail,
It's gonna be 36 inches.
37, okay, 3 feet, yeah, it is on there, okay, okay.
Mr. Kalinsky.
Question.
Mr. Zellman.
I don't have any particular concerns, but I guess following up on Mr. Kalinsky, I just want to make sure that, is there anything else that's not shown on our drawings that would be different? I know that there's the intermediate post, but is there anything else that would be different than the drawings we got?
I mean, the only thing you might not see in the drawing is that there is a secondary handrail inside on the stairs, and that would be white in color and match.
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky.
For what it's worth, the bottom rail is not shown on the elevations.
Correct. Yeah, the draft read, that's how they represent it.
Mr. Burns.
Is the deck surface at the same level as the deck that was removed?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm a little concerned that we don't have a drawing that shows what they're proposing to build. Unless we have a very elaborate statement or of condition, that doesn't represent what he's telling us they're going to build.
That's a good question. I mean, I agree with Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Burns that we want to make sure exactly what we're proving is exactly what gets built. I also know that pretty much everywhere else in the county, deck plans are, construction decks are much more, I would say, loose would be the best term to describe it. So we're much more exacting on what we want to see because we want to see something built that's exactly what we're proposing. So I think you're right, though, Mr. Burns, if there were a statement that I think clarified the post, that perhaps we could prove it with that kind of condition placed on a motion, but that would depend on the members. I think I'd be comfortable with that, given the fact that it's replacing something that was already there, but that's my view on it.
Can we scroll to an image that shows where it is on the building? Okay, so it's on the rear. Oh, it's in the front.
Mm.
And is there currently, what's hatched in the back? Is that another deck?
There's another existing wood deck on the rear of the
Is
truck.
this going to match that deck in the materials and appearance?
I'm not sure of that question. Not sure of that answer.
I wish I knew what it was replacing.
This is the only photo that we have from the homeowner.
How nice.
It does show us a view from the front of the home.
Yeah. It's good in the snow. So are those benches? That almost looks like benches.
Yeah, the existing deck, well, the deck prior did have a bench that was built in to go around.
I want that back.
This is not a one-for-one replacement of
Yeah.
what's there.
I wouldn't care so much if it wasn't on the front of the building. If we knew, I wouldn't care about having exact drawings as much as since it's right on the front.
The question, did you say railing on stairs?
Yes.
Are there any stairs in these plans?
Yeah. Instead of floor going down right next to the corner.
There's off the left edge.
Oh, I see them now, yeah.
Wasn't at the workshop. Was this shown at the workshop?
At the workshop, we requested more detailed drawings, which a lot of the material you have here does reflect that, as well as a sample of the materials were requested. I mean, I think that was Mr. Plumpy's request in particular, was to see the actual materials that were going to be put in, I'm recalling. And we also asked for a photo of the deck if they could find one, because the pictures we had before showed, where the deck was not
Yeah,
at that.
that's good. Okay, thank you for bringing that.
So I think maybe it's on us to be more specific in the workshops about how we want the decks, in the case of decks, how we, what level of detail we want to see the illustration of that. I don't think asking the applicant to come back with a detailed drawing is really going to make a difference. It's going to be, it's going to be a version of what's there, taking that sample and applying it. I mean, it's.
I think you could put a modification that has to be submitted to staff with that revision added in, quotations added. And that we had specified that, based on what was discussed, that the, what you call them, the cross supports, 3.5 feet roughly, or was that the intermediate post, that the intermediate, with the intermediate posts to be shown in the provided drawing along with the inside handrail. And you're saying that would be one intermediate post between the stretch of 7 feet? Okay. And the bottom rail, yes.
I'm just wondering, could we just photograph that and say, this is what it's gonna look like? I mean, because, he
Well,
did,
I was gonna say, that
Yeah,
is part of
that's
the
it.
submission today.
yeah.
His materials that he brought in, we can
Yeah.
include that in our statement. Yes.
It seems like,
It was just the motion, the template motion language does say as submitted and presented at the meeting. So this,
seems like. Formal drainage. as long as it's documented.
I would say to cover bases, saying what you want shown on the plan sheets, even if it's in a note, is more helpful for staff to check when the permit comes in.
There are no other comments from board members. I would entertain a motion, likely with a modification applied to it. Oh, Mr. Zelman.
I'll try. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24-HOL-31 located at 2404 Elba Court, Alexandria, tax map 0933160004 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed deck construction as submitted and presented at the December 12, 2024 ARB meeting, subject to the following modifications, that the applicant submit drawings to staff that show the intermediate posts, the bottom rail, and the stair secondary rail, as was described at this evening's meeting.
All right, there's a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Murray. Okay. I'm seeing no discussion or friendly amendments, so,
Finish the motion.
Yeah, I just realized.
oh,
I did not read. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
did you second that again, Ms. Murray? Thank you, Ms. Murray. All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. And no discussion, I'm seeing, just making sure. All right, we have a motion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you hauling that in. All right, our next item up for action is ARB 24 HUN 01, 7121 Harrison Lane addition, located at 7121 Harrison Lane in the Huntley Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the construction of a garage addition with a second-story storage room. Kirk Gilroy represents the application. I think it's important to note just the staff notes on this one that we've seen this one at a September meeting regarding the special permit, which we recommended approval, as well as we deferred the proposed application in September. And we also did a workshop session in October. So this one has been to us for several times. Mr. Gilroy?
Yes, thank you.
All right, floor is yours.
Kirk Guillory, the architect representing the owner who is also here, the co-owner. And 2 months ago, I was absent, but my colleague presented. There were 2 items that were recommendations that we have responded to since then. And one of them was to have perfect agreement between the plat as well as the footprint of the proposed addition to the home, which is on the south side, the right-hand side, next to the existing single-family home. So we have those in alignment in terms of dimensions, the width, the 19 feet, 0.1 inch width, as well as the depth of the 2-car garage, which has a proposed storage room above. And okay, I think I'm ready for the next slide or the.
On from right there, I'll move it. Just let them know.
Okay. And just highlighting to refresh everyone's memory, highlighting the proposed addition on the right-hand side that's colorized. The second item was to reduce the size of our front gable, which is facing the street, which we responded to as well. And then centering it perfectly above the proposed garage door and aligning that with the 2 windows on the front side. So this probably isn't the best slide. Please keep going for the front elevation. And this is good, but slightly shrinking and then aligning the gabled roof so that I believe we had the gable a little larger, and so now it's more diminutive and what was felt to be appropriate for particularly the facade of the garage addition. This is probably our best view of it on the far right-hand side of the 7121 property, whereas the adjacent home is in the background. And the same light fixtures that were proposed, we gave an example of the garage door and the materials and color of the door, and those, there were no issues. And earlier, we had responded to the comment of sizing the proposed windows for the second floor storage area so that the shutters and the width of the windows are in alignment in terms of the possibility that if the shutters were closed, that they could completely cover the window. And brackets that are, or corbels that face the street as well as the side. And really those were the issues. Maybe others can recall anything else that was a recommendation that for our address.
Before I turn it over to them, I'll ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application. Seeing none, I would turn over to members of the ARB to comment on this one. Ms. Hammack.
I think these small changes have made a real difference in the overall composition. And I'm really happy. So I really appreciate you and the homeowners doing them, and for my board members for suggesting them. And I can approve it as presented today. I could do without the brackets on the secondary side elevation, but I don't know if they're necessary. I think it looks so good, just the changes you've made without the addition of those brackets, but I can, either way. So thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other members? Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I noticed that there's no roof overhang on the south side. But on the north side of the original house, there is a roof overhang. Is there a reason for your chosen asymmetry there?
Yeah, I think my colleague and I were playing it safe in terms of proximity because we're really tight in terms of abiding by the 50%, not wanting to exceed the 50%
I think
encroachment.
once you're above a certain elevation, I think it's okay to project further. But that's a code issue that you might say. But I think it would lengthen the life of your siding materials.
Right.
If you had a little bit of overhang over the new south side of the addition.
Well, I do appreciate that. And I think that we're probably being a little too restrained. And if zoning will allow above a certain height for us to have a normal eave extension, and we'll take that and maybe even keep the corbels.
I wonder.
Yes, Ms. Orr.
I kind of wonder if they're going to accept the, in Arlington, those corbels couldn't be there either. We can't.
Oh,
So good luck.
Arlington.
Not in Arlington. Yeah, Fairfax.
I will agree with Ms. Hammack, though. I think the brackets, that feels that feels a little unnecessary on that side. It just feels,
I see.
yeah, there you go. And I think it'd be better without them, but otherwise I agree with her. I appreciate all the changes you've made to accommodate this design. I think it's a really good looking addition now.
yeah, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky.
I think you've taken heart all our comments and produced a good thing, but I think it comes back to those brackets, which aren't really supporting anything.
That's right.
And they're kind of awkwardly placed. Would your client be willing to eliminate those brackets as part of this submission?
Lauren Ruthie and one of the homeowners, we kind of like them aesthetically. We like them. I mean, if it's gonna be a make or break with the board, we can consider it, but given that there are corbels, existing right now on that side of the house, as well as on the existing, I guess, north side, the facade there you see towards the left. We wanted to keep it consistent, to keep with the theme of the architecture of the house.
Corbels on the south side of the house right now where you're putting the addition on?
Correct.
Do we have a picture of those to see?
I did not include it in this package.
Actually, it was, yeah.
Okay, well, but they're
But they have-
serving a function. They're supporting the eave, the overhang.
Well, they're not really supporting it, but
Well,
in a,
That's,
in a world.
they give the illusion that they're supporting the eave overhang
Right.
and your design doesn't have an extended eave. It's tight because you're trying to avoid that more than 50% into the.
sure.
We could approve it saying that if Fairfax allows the projection, the brackets remain, but if it needs to be flush with the fall.
Just my opinion, it's not architecturally appropriate to have brackets that just hang on.
No, if the projection is not approved
Oh,
by Fairfax, then the brackets be eliminated. And then leave it up to the zoning, the reviewer.
I disagree.
No, okay.
Mm.
I mean, I'd like them to go too. I'm just trying to come up with a palatable compromise.
No, we appreciate all the efforts to get this to this point. It just, I'll be honest, I'm concerned that a citizen will drive by and say, who approved that? And the answer is going to be us. And that's,
They haven't always, this is new, right? They haven't always been there, right?
I didn't see them last,
No, those brackets,
on the side.
yeah, on that side, since we bought the house back in 2017.
No, the ones you're proposing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Side of the addition.
On the drawing.
They weren't
yeah.
originally there. The first time you came in, the second time, I don't remember brackets on the plain side of your addition.
Believe they were, but Kirk, can you correct me on that?
I'm forgetting actually, to be honest.
I know they were always on the front with,
Yeah.
yeah, and the ones on the front, I'm okay with.
I agree with without them serving their pseudo purpose that they are pretending to serve. I think
Yes, it's architecturally, it's like inappropriate. It's the language, it doesn't work. I know that seems fussy, but
I'm in the same group with Ms. Hammock, though. If the zoning allowed you to extend that, eave over and you had them there, they would not be as noticeable because it would be a part of the structure. But here I kind of thought they almost felt like something that you would have off the front of a barn. You pull things into a hayloft, like they kind of,
and the scale of the new brackets appear to be larger than the scale of the brackets that are existing currently on the south side. The ones that we saw the picture of.
And maybe that's a function of what's available within a 3D model.
Yeah, those are more just a simple
Mhm.
triangular strut,
Yeah.
essentially holding it up.
yeah, those are very simple.
Well, should we agree with that provision that if we're able to get an overhang, if zoning allows that, then brackets are acceptable?
That the brackets look as close as possible to what you have existing on the other secondary elevation, side elevation.
yes, Mr. Burns, sorry.
We're starting to design this for the client. I don't think that's a wise.
No, you're right. We're drifting
Um,
into that.
But if I could make an observation, the only time they will appear as prominent as they do on that elevation drawing is if you're standing in direct alignment and seeing that. Everybody else is going to see them obliquely, except for that specific, you happen to be driving by in your car and you turn your head exactly at that time to see it. Other than that, they're not going to be as prominently visible. And so I don't think that that's a deal breaker. I think that the client has gone, their applicant has gone to great lengths to meet our demands, suggestions, and we've got a project that I think is substantially improved from what it first was. And I'm okay with it the way it is. That's my piece.
Okay, that's Ms. Murray.
I know they have been there all along. I just went back in
There you
September.
go.
Well,
They do have it. They do have overhang as well.
Okay. One other thing I was just also gonna add is, I mean, yes, you might be able to see them in the winter when all the leaves are down, but there are trees in the front that, again, we have tried to arrange the garage to make sure that it was not inhibiting or damaging the trees. So with the growth and the leaves during the summer, spring and fall, that will also obstruct the brackets from view of the road.
Did you ever hear from the neighbor that owns the rental property next door?
We still haven't.
All right, well, you tried.
I mean, to add to that conversation, I'll also point out this is a non-contributing property in our historic overlay district. So
Yeah.
if you were putting brackets on a property and doing this, I think I would have much more. I just aesthetically don't like the idea, but Mr. Burns' points are very well taken.
Yeah.
And Daniel, you feel like you had something you were looking up to.
Miss Murray beat me to the punch.
Okay, Miss Murray beat you to the punch.
They were there from the beginning, but
Okay.
Steve.
All right.
Well, and this, I don't mean to belabor, it, but this does get to the fact that we're asking to approve something that's not, that's drawn differently than what's going to be built. Because these brackets are a product of the architectural program. They're not actually the ones that you're going to put up there. Are you going to have them as curly Q and
Or to match existing.
were they going to match existing?
The plan is to match existing. To Kirk's point, it may have just been that's what would be added to represent the bracket.
And if they were drawn as what was existing, it probably wouldn't be drawing so much attention.
Yes.
That's
Understood.
that's part of what we're trying to balance here is what are we actually approving? You know, if somebody comes back and says, well, you didn't think I was actually going to do it. So we're caught in a catch-22 trying to figure this out.
Now, is it normal for a caveat that your approval is based on the example photo that's included and necessarily this drawing?
That caveat could be made, certainly,
Yeah, that they replicate.
but generally we're approving the two-dimensional drawings.
We're able to add modifications to our approval, and as was pointed out the last one, it can also be what was presented during the meeting, and those modifications can be included. The board is, the hesitancy you see is that the board has run into situations where things have been approved and not always built as they were approved. And this board's ability to rectify those things once construction is complete are limited. So
We made assumptions about what was
Yes.
approved, as in the case of the siding down at Liberty. And
I mean,
Brackets are a little off.
Daniel, do you have as much, would you have as much as you need to approve a motion with these terms?
Yes.
Because that's the important part too.
So,
Clear to him.
yes, Ms. Orr.
sorry, the brackets that they're showing in section that are to the front are the curly Qs as well. And, you know, we're after somebody about a handrail. So,
I think that would depend if someone wants to make a motion that could accurately capture this, I would say the outstanding issue, we could work with it, but it really does stand on that point because we saw the picture. Those aren't the brackets that are there now. Yes, Mr. Burns.
Do we have a picture of the brackets on the street facade of the original house? That this is ostensibly going to match?
Are there brackets on the other gabled?
Yeah.
And they would inevitably match the ones that are,
They do. I just don't know if there's a picture in this deck, but
yeah, they do appear.
There was.
So that's kind of another reason for making all the brackets match the ones that are there. Plus, you'll probably be salvaging those three brackets.
we would love to do that.
Where are the three? Oh, so currently the wall that's being encompassed by the addition has brackets.
That's the view that's shown.
Okay.
was underneath.
Yeah, but they could pull them out and use them on the new wall.
But the ones that are drawn here for the front are curly Q
Yeah.
as well.
I think it's just the drafting
Gonna
program.
change that.
Okay, I'm gonna try.
Doesn't have that.
I'm gonna make a motion. Is that
Okay, Ms. Hammock.
Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve action item ARB 24-HUN 01 located at 1721 Harrison Lane, Alexandria. Tax map 0924-01006 in the Huntley HOD. The proposed addition with the stipulation that all new brackets installed as part of the addition either reuse and reinstall existing brackets found at the building or accurately replicate existing brackets currently found at the building, as shown in color photographs presented at today's meeting. And as well as the drawings as submitted and presented at, excuse me, not as in the drawings, and everything else as shown in the drawings with the exception of the brackets presented the December 12th, 2024 ARB meeting. Sorry, that was so wordy.
Need you to read the last line.
Upon review of the materials, the proposal is
Thank you.
found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 31-3101 historic overlay districts.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think seconded by both Ms. Mangum and Mr. Burns. Any discussion? Hearing none, I look for a motion. I think I'm going to do a roll call vote, to be honest. So, Mr. Zellman, will you track for me?
Yep.
All right. Ms. Hammack?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Ms. Orr?
Aye.
Mr. Zellman?
Aye.
Aye for Mr. Daniel?
Aye.
Ms. Kalinsky? Ms.
Aye.
Ms. Murray?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Holland?
Aye.
Aye. Well, I didn't need to. All right, the motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Holidays.
All right. This takes us on to our next item for action, or last item for action, ARB 24 HOL 25, 2405 Namath Court Edition. This is located in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing a one-story addition. Scott Searle represents the application. And again, just to remind this one has been with us at a work session back in May. And this what we also saw it again in November, last month. So, sir, floor is yours.
I think it was September, and I apologize. I missed the meeting in October. I didn't understand that deferred meant that it was automatically put on the next agenda. And my schedule was such that it just didn't work for me to be here. So anyway, but I think we have now corrected the window frame issue. Which was the point of contention. Aligning in the section, aligning the and drawing them correctly. Did also a larger scale detail. And sorry, the DRB preferred for us to do the standard method of noticing the 2x6 and placing the fixed glass in there. So he actually provided, one of the members provided a detail that he sent to us, so. However, we're perfectly willing to proceed with this method. But in the meantime, just recently, I found some windows. One of the members, I can't remember who, mentioned that the profile should be as thin as possible. And for the windows, the Anderson windows are about 2 inches. I have found one that's 1.5 inches. And we uploaded that earlier this week. I don't know if you have that or not.
We can look.
And I'm only proposing the other windows because I just feel more comfortable. I think it's going to be a better product for my clients if we use a pre-finished, it's aluminum. It's not the Holland Hills, 2x6s that you have to keep painting and maintenance on them. And it will be more energy efficient. Because it's a, you know, it's just would be a better system, I think, so. But if you don't have them,
I was gonna say, I think at this point, we didn't get that
okay,
alternative one. We only got the Anderson
no problem then.
option that was shown. And if it came into Daniel, I don't.
You prefer the Anderson option.
This is the Anderson one.
That's the one that you prefer.
The other one you found that's the one you prefer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
No, this one is the 2-inch one. The other one you found was an 1.5 inches.
And I do have,
It's the preferred one, too.
The Anderson one's the preferred one. Okay. Barring not having that, I think that would, no,
I do have,
it's information we don't have to look at or consider. So if there weren't, I mean, I know that was the big issue. Were there any other changes? Or is that the particular one?
that was it.
Okay. I'll ask if there's any member of the public that has a comment on this item. Seeing none, I turn to members for questions on the updated submission. Oh, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, you mentioned that you found a window option that you feel is a better option and closer to the original configuration. But we don't have it to review. And if you and your client feel strongly enough about that, you could potentially come back next month.
I have a printout of it.
Yeah, but we
I know.
need to have the ability to review it in advance of the meeting, and none of us have that
Okay.
had that opportunity to consider that. Windows are a big deal in Holland Hills,
I know.
as everybody's aware. And so if you have discovered an option that may be more energy efficient, that meets the standard to protect the historic character of the community, I would like to hear it.
Okay.
But we don't have the ability to hear it tonight. That's the problem.
I have another,
That's a decision that you and your client have to make as to whether or not you want to defer and come back.
the thing I like about the other option is that it does have a square edge profile. It's not a, it's not a little bit curved, so.
I want to make sure I understood then, but to make it, from what I understood though, while you found this alternative option that's thinner, that's not the one that your clients would prefer. The Anderson one is the one that your clients would prefer.
Oh, I don't know.
No, okay, no, see, I think I got confused as to which was being referred. So I would agree with Mr. Burns if this is something that would be preferred and you're willing to bring it back. I mean, it sounds like a better win for everybody.
Because it would be,
Potentially better.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Oh, yes, Mr. Plum.
Sure, would it be possible if you do come back next month,
Okay.
to bring a sample of the window or,
sure, absolutely.
that'd be wonderful, because I think that could be potentially for your neighborhood, Mr. Burns, the ultimate prize, if you like it. I mean, if. you
Who
like it.
makes this magical window?
It's Quaker Quartz, I'm sorry, Quartz.
Oh, interesting.
And then,
Yes, Daniel.
The new window materials were uploaded in Plus on Tuesday, so I just downloaded them and put them in the Ignite file for anyone who has that open. And we can display them on the screen, but it's the cut sheet, so it's multiple pages of details.
yeah, probably.
One thing you did say concerned me in that you said it has square edges, which to me sounds like commercial storefront design. And a rabbited 2x6, the edges are
I
even.
know that, I know. You're not,
So if you're going all of a sudden to storefront design, we had an architect come and say, well, we're going to take all these 9 windows out and we're going to put storefront in. It's like, I don't think that's going to fly.
Mhm.
So it depends, a lot of it depends on our ability to intensely look at this thing very carefully and thoughtfully.
well, the square edge is an option. It doesn't have to be that. They also will do the other.
So avoiding going into what feels more like a workshop discussion, I think you've got one of potentially two options. One, if the,
I'm good.
you're, okay. Well, what I would then suggest is if we do defer to next time, if that, I think if you're being good, you'll come back and bring that alternate option, or do you want to us to proceed with what?
I think let's just proceed.
Okay, all right. I want to make sure I followed that. Okay. Because the other option would be bringing them in and bringing both options and then asking the board to contemplate both.
We have the courts up if you want to lead us to the right page.
Okay, so this, I mean, that's the you can see that's an inch and a half there with the instead of 2 inches. And there was a second one that was called Quaker. The courts doesn't, they have a compatible fixed unit that you can get.
I'm not necessarily, again, since this is an item for application, for vote, I don't know. I mean, we're really diving into examining a material sheet.
Can you take this and add it to your architectural drawings? Like take the dimensions of the window that you want and then,
We'd have to come back.
yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Well, I think Mr. Searle is saying he does not wish to. He would rather us vote on the application as presented. Right.
With the Anderson window.
With the Anderson window that was proposed. That's what I was trying to get to the bottom of. So setting that aside, while there was a window option provided, it was not provided to us in time to consider. Are there any other comments from board members on the application as presented with the revised cut sheet that we requested last time? Seeing any, I would entertain a motion from a member regarding this application. Typically with deferral, we would ask the applicant to accept deferring. So or look for a motion for approval or denial. Mr. Kalinsky.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24 HOL 25 located at 2405 Nemeth Court, Alexandria, tax map 0933120011 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed addition as submitted and presented at the December 12, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Mangum. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Just
Any abstentions? One abstention. All right, the motion carries. All right, Mr. Searle, I would still ask if you would send that in. I think now that Daniel has it, he can share it with us because we'd be very curious to look at it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much. You guys have put me through a workout today with these applications. It's like you think it's my last time being chair. All right, that takes us out of our items for workshop. We have 2 items for workshop. I'll just highlight again to the applicants presenting these. If you've been here before, keep your presentation to roughly 3 minutes to take us back through what's changed. If you have not, 8 minutes is typically the time I try to hold you to. So our first one is ARB 24 HOL 32 WS 2205 Glasgow Road Solar Project in the Holland Hills Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the installation of 24 roof-mounted solar panels. Mr. Coker represents the application.
We're in tag team that actually.
Okay. Well, if you would just introduce your tag team partner so that we have.
Kathy Chabet, my wife.
All right.
Okay, so someone else is going to go through the slides then.
Yes, if you'll just tell Jonathan right there when you need to move the slides, he'll move it for you.
Okay, let's go to the first slide. This is the Historic Overlay District, and the little mark you see is our house. Next. Okay, next slide. Okay, well, here's the actual project, and you see the solar panels are on the back edge of the roof. One edge of the roof faces Glasgow Road. And on this, the what's interesting is the red arrow here that points to the back of the house is where the battery is going to go. So all the other ones that are black that are next to it are small boxes or things that are pointing to things that were already there. Okay, so the next one, this is the close-up of solar panels. You can see they occupy almost all the back of the roof and none of the front of the roof. And we're going to be, in Kathy's portion, we'll show views from different spots around to see how visible that is from front and from back. But that's just the basic overlay of where they are. And I think there are 24
to workshop.
panels. Okay, this is basically just about showing you the battery. And the battery is 43.5 inches by 24 inches by 7.6 inches deep. To give you some idea of how big it's going to be. Okay, now we go to photos. Kathy will show you where these things are going to be and how they look from different vantage points.
Basically, I'm going to walk you all the way around the house. But I'm going to start in this weird spot just so you can see that the distance between the back wall, which is where the battery is going to be, is hidden from almost everybody else by the shed, which is directly behind it. So if I could have the next slide. This is that wall where the battery will be. And the next slide will show you, this is where the electrical equipment that has been extant in the house since we've been there is located. So we put the battery back here so it would be invisible to almost everybody. And it needed to be adjacent. So that's why that's located where it is. Okay, if I can have the next slide. This is our neighbor as you're facing the front of our house to this side. And this is what he can see from his yard. I went to the absolute extremes of my property to take the picture. So this is what he can see. If I can have the next slide. This is what the neighbor directly behind us can see. That's the back of the roof, obviously. But if you go to the next picture, what you can see in that next picture is that actually there are a lot of trees back here that are in her backyard, which you couldn't see in that other picture. So this is standing on my deck, and this is what I think it's not going to be as starkly visible to her as it looked like it was going to be in that other picture. So that's why I took this. Okay, now if I can have the next slide. This is from our neighbors to the other side. We have kind of a wild border between those two houses, and there's almost no place along that whole side of the house that you can see into our backyard. But that's the shed there. They can't see the roof at all, actually, from their side, and they're lower down in their house. And if I can have the next slide. This is directly from the front of our house. I'm not absolutely smack in the middle because, as you can see, we have plantings out here, so you wouldn't be able to see the house very well from further over. If I could have the next slide. This is the view that our neighbors directly across the street see. So they're not really directly across the street from us, but that our property rises by 10 feet. So they can't really, you can't see the roof, the front roof from the road at all. And there's one more picture, which is from the corner of Glasgow. And you can kind of see the back roof here. And that's the best picture I could get of the back roof from the street. That's all we've got.
Okay.
Ready to answer questions if we can.
Thank you so much. Workshops, so no public comment. I would look to ARB members for comments they might have. Yes, Mr. Zellman.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. My question, I have an idea of where the battery and the some other electrical equipment will be on the back and side of the house. One question we always have with the solar panels on the roof is where's the conduit running? Is that going to be running down the exterior of the home? Will it be running in the walls? So the conduit that's going to power those solar panels, how will it run?
I believe
It'll run down the back of the house where the, next to the, where the battery will be. So it'll be between the battery and the edge of the house.
This is existing, so it'll be in here some,
In that
you
area.
have to go, yeah.
It'll be on the wall going.
I think what Mr. Zellman in particular is getting at is we would want that information graphically represented in an application for approval, so that we would know, we would, so right now you don't know, that's exactly, but when you do come back for an application, we'd want to know, where is that happening on the facade?
Okay.
I think he may have that in the drawings in the technical information that we sent you, but I'm not certain. That's not, we just picked out the pictures we thought were.
Yeah, yeah. And,
I hate to make it less comfortable for the both of you, but if you could come back up here so we can see you two.
Yeah.
On the front.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and
So we can hear you on the mics and everything.
I'm obviously only speaking for myself, not for everybody, but the shed is a great spot for that conduit to run if it has to be on the exterior. So,
Yes.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Mrs. Orr.
And when you come back, the profile of your solar panel, there's a lot of them out there. We want to know what it looks like, is it a big one on a rack that's,
No, it's that.
and of course it's not, but that is important for your submission. We need to have that as part of the,
Yeah, like how is it mounted on the
Right.
roof?
what it looks like up there.
And that may all be contained within some of the cut sheet material that will
Right.
be in your package. Because with this workshop, all you gave us was a presentation. And while we don't require materials for workshop sessions, and I went and checked, it says on there that you don't have to. I double checked.
I think we decided yes.
But it's always nice when we have it, but the presentation is giving us a walkthrough of the project, but all that information will be critical for when it is being reviewed as a full package to know that mounting information and things like that. Yes, Daniel?
Was all provided. It somehow did not get
Oh,
uploaded.
okay. Then we didn't get it.
We're pulling up the other materials.
We'll just blame Daniel.
that have been sent to-
okay.
Also,
We didn't want to page you through this.
No, it's okay. Yeah, Ms. Hammock, sorry, you had a comment too.
I think to the chair's point, we just want to make sure, we think it's a good proposal. We want to be able to approve it next time you come to us. And we want to be consistent that we're asking you for everything that we ask other people. So
Okay.
I think it was a really thorough presentation. I appreciate it. I personally am more concerned with what can be seen from a public right of way than from your neighbors. But I'm sure your neighbors appreciate your thoughtfulness too. But given the monolithic shape of your roof and the way the panels are arranged, I think the visibility from the neighbors, I mean, I can't speak for your neighbors, but it seems to be reasonable. And from the street, minimally visible. I think everyone should photograph Holland Hills in the fall.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to move there.
Yeah.
I like it even better than the spring.
I don't know, I think you should be helping run a class to folks for how to photograph.
Yeah, actually, we should, this,
A really good walkthrough.
When we went to the design review for Holland Hills, that they were really concerned that it not be visible from the front of the house. So when we started to talk to solar panel people, we said it needs to be invisible from the front.
Yeah.
So, and none of our, we did have to send letters to notify all our neighbors before we went to design review, and nobody. In fact, we had a couple of people say, "Oh, this is great."
Well,
yeah, when you're lucky, I mean, with Holland Hills, you come into the conundrum of what shape is your roof and where's the sun?
Yeah.
yes, we're
We were
lucky.
very-
Yeah, your Venn diagram, you got it in the middle, so that's,
And this tells you about how the panels are attached
okay.
and about, they have to, there has to be a gap between the panel and the roof. So no panel is flat on the roof, but that's.
Thank you. Miss Murray, you had a.
There have been several, there was I think the last presentation from Holland Hills was probably a good example of what should be shown.
Oh, the one that we saw several times.
We saw several times, the ultimate version of that.
Yes.
Right.
Might be an example for Daniel to show you as an example of what the board needs to see.
Okay.
So Daniel, if you're willing to help me with that.
We've been rather meticulous on several of these recently. Yes, Mr. Burns.
I concur with what you said. That's the guy across the street from you.
We heard.
And we better hold you the same standard. Just keep like 3 times.
Right.
Absolutely.
A couple of things are different about this project from that project, for those of you who remember it. One, this is the other side of the street, so that the rear of the house faces the optimum solar angle. It's a benefit. And a house is situated uphill from the street. And so you're already looking up, and so it's even less likely to become visible. And so you also have the happy coincidence of not having penetrations over a substantial portion of the rear slope of your roof, which means you can put an unbroken block, as you pointed out, of solar panels, which in the end becomes less prominent visually than it.
Child.
They're
Got all the right elements playing.
So yeah, we have a confluence here of situations because of the house's orientation, its relationship to the street, and the planar surface where you're going to apply the panels, that it makes it relatively straightforward. I echo Mr. Zellman's concerns that we would like to know where the conduit's going to run.
Okay.
And stuff like that. You already appear to have a boxed up electrical service on the end under the peak of your gable. Is that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're totally mystified by that because the union wanted us to take that out.
It's, well,
The undergrounding.
somebody probably thought that made it less obtrusive than having it on the surface of the house. And that's somebody at some point made that decision and boxed it in for you.
Right.
And then you inherited it.
Indeed.
Yes. And it is definitely, I would say, when we get these applications, one of the big focuses is on, well, what are the panels going to look like? How are they going to be mounted in the building? But we have seen instances where we say, oh, the conduit's going to go right here and a box will go right here. But then when you look at the practical picture of the structure, there's no place for that to be installed, or it's going to be in a very prominent space. And while it looks like what you're proposing right now is, out of the way and obtrusive, making sure that's shown on the set of materials that's coming into us for the next application.
So you want like a drawing of the side of the house with the exact placement of those items?
We've seen various variations on that. So I can-
Photograph with a drawing, like if someone just drew on the photograph
Drew on the photograph?
and it was in dimension, we saw the dimension of the box.
Just,
Because I think you have a great spot that is not going to be visible, so we just need confirmation that it's
yeah,
going to be.
yeah. Whoever.
Any other? Okay, I get the impression we'll be seeing you all again soon. And thank you for the wonderful tag team presentation.
Great job.
Thank you.
More couples should come and do that for their Thursday evenings.
Just come to ARB.
Photographs and take it.
Thank you.
All right, our next item for workshop is ARB 24 LOR 13 WS 9030 Powerhouse Road alterations. This is located in Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible district. The applicant is proposing the adaptive reuse of building P12, the former dining hall, into a climbing gym operated by Sport Rock. I feel like you have to say it that way. Proposed exterior alterations include placement of HVAC units, associated wall penetrations, installation of entrance, as well outdoor climbing structures. Mr. Jack Perkins and Mr. Michael Nanny represent the application. Sir, good to see you.
It's good to be back before you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am happy to say that after 5 years, we have finally found the right tenant for building P12. Sport Rock is a locally owned and operated business. I believe you were maybe the first commercial climbing gym in the Washington metropolitan area.
That's right.
Over 30 years, they've developed quite a membership, and this will be their fourth location in the metro area. We're very excited to add them to the community and to the Liberty Market Center. The building that they will be occupying, the dining hall, is a little over 9,000 square feet. It is a large clear span space. Ceiling heights are upwards of 19 feet, so we think it suits their operation quite well. Tonight, the presentation will focus on the adaptations to the building that they need to make on the exterior primarily to operate the business. I would also like to add that we are seeking historic preservation tax credits from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources The plans you'll see tonight, we have made a preliminary presentation to VDHR, and we have filed a formal application, and we are expecting to receive hopefully approval of that application within any day now. It's been in for almost 30 days. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Sport Rock team. I'd like to introduce Michael Nanny. Michael is one of the founders of Sport Rock, and he is currently the CEO. And Michael and his team will make the presentation.
Thanks, Chuck. Good evening. Thank you for giving a Thursday night up to review applications. Again, Michael Nanny, I'm the CEO of Sport Rock Climbing Centers. And as Jack said, we're celebrating our 30th year in business, founded in 1994. So it's been a remarkable run. You know, for myself and for the 7,000 members of Sport Rock, indoor climbing is the funnest way to be fit, right? It's sort of fitness is fun. And because of that, our climbing centers really become community centers, community hubs, community draws. People meet their spouses there. They bring their kids there. We've hosted weddings in our climbing gyms. And we're really excited to bring that fun and fitness and community element to the overall Liberty redevelopment of the former Lorton Penitentiary. So we're excited to be here. Again, I'm Michael Nanny. I'm joined tonight by my colleague and a partner in the business, Jeremy Harden, and Bob Dunning from Dunning Architects. So Bob, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure.
And we'll just sort of jump in, and Chris Collinsworth here occasionally is needed.
Please. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Dunning with Dunning Group Architects. We're a local firm. We've had the pleasure of working with Sport Rock for quite a few years now, which has been good. We're very excited about this location. I think that it's very unique and where it is going. And actually, if we can kind of maybe advance to the next slide. This is borrowed from your marketing literature. This is actually, you know what I think. She came prepared with a pointer. Okay, so if it works, there it goes. Maybe it doesn't.
I think the TV absorbs it.
It does. I'm amazed. Okay, the perimeter of the original prison is, as you see, is bordering the square area here. The climbing facility in question is building P12, which was the former dining facility for the prison. And the way that it's been developed is that you have the retail element over here. You have the former barracks buildings, which are getting specialty retail on this side here. And you have a beautiful outdoor event area, like a parade ground that's on the, we'll call it Plan South. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, this is part of the just an aerial photo from the redevelopment efforts. You can see where the original, this is just helped to see the original structures. So you see the original perimeter with the guard towers, the barracks buildings, and building P12 is here. On the top side, here's where the retail portion was put together. You have housing that's being put on, we'll call it Picture South side here. And again, here is the parade ground. If you go to the next slide. This is kind of after it was developed. Very pretty. So now we're looking at it from the opposite side. So again, building P12 that we're going to be talking about is here. Parade grounds here, barracks buildings. You see the all the residential development that's been happening around the edges. And then we have the retail piece out front. Again, this was the dining hall, maybe digging too far, not too far back, but there were modifications done on the parking lot side of P12. Originally, there was an extension on that side of the building. It was part of the officers' kitchen and dining quarters, and it was part of the redevelopment efforts. The retail in there is very nice, more modern, but very complementary to the original the buildings. The signage you see, if you just have you take note of that now. There's a lot of building mounted signage for the retail that we're going to come back and revisit in just a moment. You could do a next slide. Okay. Now we're going to focus on P12 now that we have context. On the left side over here, these are just different vantage points, the same thing. You see the P12 structure. There has been an awning element put out in front here.
you'll see the change in the brick color, and that's where the old piece, the officer's kitchen came off the front. Looks like it was a very intentional decision made to make sure that you could see where old original brick was versus proposed new repair. So that's why you see that. From this side here, you're seeing, again, the same front elevation, but turning the sides because you have a little bit of a sidewalk or a little court area where the front element sticks out. This is we're proposing is the front entrance element for the climbing center itself, and you'll see the barracks buildings kind of going around the backside. If you could go to the next slide. I had 8 minutes, so I'm trying to talk fast. Okay, as we work around the west side, again, retail is off to the left over here. You're looking at the ends of the building, and you're seeing a barrack building here with some of the colonnade that you see that kind of works its way around the lawn, the green, or the parade ground through here. We're going to come back and revisit it, but you're seeing a lot of the original brick through here and the original detailing, and it's been cleaned up very nicely.
If it helps you, this board is very familiar with this site. So,
Oh, I'm okay.
yeah. So that new retail, we've meticulously worked through it. Yeah.
Much on the past, I'll keep moving it forward.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
No problem.
very helpful. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, working on the parade ground side, you'll see the concrete slab that's set out behind the building. And we're going to come back and revisit that in a few minutes as well. Next slide. Okay, this is the east elevation going to the opposite side. Again, barracks building and connection. We're just trying to create familiarity with the photos. The next picture, please. Okay. We have 4 primary things that we think that we very much like to talk about for the workshop session. We have one will be exterior signage. Another one will be exterior equipment. We're going to have, because the buildings don't have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in them now. And so we're going to talk about some of the precedent that's out there and maybe how we need to place it for this particular structure. The third item is we're going to restore an existing light well at the back, as we're proposing, to bring light in, because we're going to utilize lower level that currently is limited on windows on the parade ground side. So we'd like to restore one of those windows on the back. The fourth item would be a recreational element on the parade ground side, which we'll talk about. Okay. For the signage, what we're looking to do is, in like kind with the retail center, is use just a building mounted illuminated signage and incorporating the logo that we have out there. And we're trying to not make it too overpowering, but be, again, complementary to what's going on around it. So that is kind of what we're proposing. Can I go next slide? The second item was talking about the mechanical equipment. And this is, we're starting to get into location options. We have a total of, I think it was 6 VRF units. VRF are the outdoor units for the heat pump system that we're going to use inside the building. The way the building is set up, it's impossible to put these inside the building, so they have to be outside. And we'll show you some precedent for that. These units are, as illustrated here, are box type units. They're about 22 to 24 inches wide. They're about 4 to 4.5 feet in length and about 4.5 feet high. And they're going to sit on housekeeping pads outside. So what we have here that we'd like to workshop with you is trying to find the right place to put these things. So what we have is we have 3 locations we're entertaining. Our thought is, do we put them all in one location? Do we put one here, one there, 2 there, that kind of a thing, and see how we can get the best placement. So for the purposes of the workshop, we have, again, this is the retail side. Here's the parade ground side, where our thoughts are, here's the 6 units all put in one corner in the front, one tucked by that back colonnade on the west side, another one on the east side. And so we thought we'd just take a look at what do those mean, or what do they look like. If we look at the one on the west side, we're looking at placing them about as you see them here. It's utilitarian. So that's one of the things we want to kind of ferret out while we're talking here. So this is one. Could go to the next slide. The next one is going to the opposite corner. This is where the guard access was going up for the overlook for the dining hall. Same type of thing that was going on the west side, but now just looking at moving it all to the east side. And again, we're not advocating all of one at one location or another, but maybe even looking at maybe fewer in each of the locations. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this one is out on the front side. This is facing the retail center. So the thought was the only place that seemed like a viable location for the VRF unit or the outdoor units is in the front corner here. Let's go one more. This is the precedent. You're looking at these are photographs from the development, the barracks buildings for the child care center. And other, this is pictures of the units that they have. Ours be very similar to that. So it looks like this is a system that's already been introduced to the property. They sit on housekeeping pads, the concrete pads that you see here. And in some cases, you'll see there's some little bit of screening around it with the picketing fence, but you'll see there's the electrical disconnect switches as required by code. And there's, in addition to the electrical conduits, there's actually penetrations for the variable refrigerant flows that are going in. You see the white piping. So ours would be in like kind. And again, we figured if we show you this, then you can help us best select locations. Let's go to the next slide. All right, this is some of the other outdoor equipment that has been utilized as standard heat pump units that are out on housekeeping pads. These are a little bit smaller units for smaller zones, but those are out there as well. So in all fairness, we want to show you what is out there. Next slide. Okay, this is the second item, our third item that we want to talk about was the light well. Currently on the back of the building, the window wells had been removed and grass had been, or dirt had been filled in the window well and grass grown back over it. What we would like to do is to restore, there's the existing concrete structure for the window well is already still there. We'd like to excavate the dirt that's been put in that window well, and we'd like to restore the window to bring natural light down in the lower level. And again, this is on the back of the building towards the lawn or the parade ground, and we would cover it with essentially a safety grate that would match the black material that's elsewhere in the development, just for safety. Next slide. This is a plan view of that same area in the back elevation. So actually, I'll start with the photograph. Originally, before it was renovated, you had symmetrical windows about the Palladian in the middle here. And with the renovations, one window was removed and a door put in its place. The window wells that we're talking about are located right below the grass where you see it in the center, behind that Palladian window. So again, we'd just like to take the dirt out and restore one of those windows. The other one is below where the door is, but we like this one because there's a room that we'd like to use for exercise and things lower level, and that would be a great window to have. Next slide, please. Okay, last one is on the back of the building. Michael was talking about that Sport Rock is a great indoor climbing center. Guess what? We would love to take it outdoors too. We thought this is an opportunity to do outdoor recreational climbing as well, potentially to create just a nice focal point back on that parade ground, that lawn. So what we want to do is kind of kick this one around a little bit with you to talk about that. So what we're looking to do is there's the concrete patio that's back here. That's what we see represented right here. Actually for climbing and usage purposes, we're looking at extending the concrete maybe back up close to the building, just infill here and here, which is that little green spot here and here, just to get a bigger surface to work with. If we could advance the next slide. Okay, this is a detailed plan of that. So we're proposing an outdoor climbing or bouldering element out here. It would be enclosed by fencing. One is for the safety of the facility and also safety of the public that's out there. So there's not a problem with people getting in and climbing and creating a danger to themselves. So we wanted to make sure there's adequate enclosure around that. And then the side hooks would just tie into it. There's a gating system that's there. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, now we're kind of one more vertical. So the Sport Rock team could probably better address the actual climbing element itself, the bouldering. This essentially is a framed climbing element. It's clad. You've probably seen them on the inside. It's a very similar element. There'll be handholds and fun things they could put on the outside. The element that you see on top is they're proposing a sun and weather canopy. So either it's integrated into the climbing element itself, or potentially it's something that spans across the top of it.
like a tensile or a tent structure. But at this point, this is kind of what we've been talking about. You see that the fencing going around it and the extension of the patio. Go to next slide. Looking from a different vantage point. Okay, you're seeing the barrack building in the background. Again, the building that you're all familiar with here, and proposing the outdoor element. What you don't see are all the colorful handholds and fun things that will go on that. It's not just a big gray rock. Okay. Go to the next slide. These are some of the ideas. These are other locations around the country and similar outdoor climbing elements where you see that they've got a sun, like just a sun canopy or a weather structure. You see the climbing elements. There's safety padding that goes around the perimeter, but that's all weather. So ours is kind of an in-light kind. We'd like to look at that and consider it. The colors could be selected. We could do some fun things. Go to the next slide. And this is, again, this is kind of a summary of the same thing with the climbing element, but in this case, in plan view, it's harder to see. You see there's some tent or tensile structure poles, and this would have a stretched fabric across it. If we can go to the next slide. Something like that, like a sun canopy that might be a little bit lighter as far as the sun can peek through it. It could still block a lot of the sun rays as well as most of the weather. Could go to the next slide. Or another view of the same thing. Next slide. More views of these tensile fabrics. The idea is that you can create a very fun, playful look with the colors, and that's something that we would like to consider and welcome your input on as well. Next slide. This is an overall facility plan. So we say we've been looking at the outside. It might be good to see how the inside and the outside work together. So, excuse me. So again, retail side through here, the parade ground side over here, and I'm gonna just kind of stand off to the side here. Working from the top, we have the main entrance area. Figure out where I'm not in someone's way. Entrance coming through here, main administrative desk through here. So this is like the entrance hall. This was the former main kitchen for those of you that have the history with the facility. This was a dishwashing area, and this was, I think it was a storage holding area, a wash area too. But we're going to take this front area and we're going to turn it into the nice entrance area. There will be a concession and lounge area that's set up in front here. There will be a utility area here. There'll be a lift for bringing equipment up and down, and also be used for handicapped as well. Right now, there's only one stair going to the lower level. More probably not needing to focus as much on this over here. So we're looking to add an additional stair so that we meet all the fire and life safety requirements for the facility. Inside, this is going to their existing model is the indoor climbing area. So we're going to, in that large clear span area that was described earlier, this is where we'll have the bouldering structures. This is that you found at their other facilities. You'll see the extent of the impact mat through here. We'll have party rooms and things on the outside edge. We'll have more things downstairs, which we'll get to. And this just shows the connection of what's inside with what's being proposed outside. Next slide, please. This is the basement level. So currently, we talked about windows a few minutes ago. We have some windows through here. These really are the only remaining windows that serve, and they're in a window well, just like it was on the back of the building here. So we're proposing to put in the locker room and the showers and the restrooms in that lower facility. We'll have some additional lockers out through here, some seating areas, and we're looking for an indoor fitness center that will be used for a variety of events. There is a washroom, which is really for the equipment, the climbing equipment, is constantly cleaned. There's some separated changing rooms as well. And again, this is the window that we're looking to restore outside, if we can, to bring the light in. Next slide. Okay, this is a recap of some of those images. So again, we welcome your input with respect to all those outdoor elements that we know we need to discuss. With the signage, we're going to have the outdoor equipment placement and screening. We're going to have the window well restoration if we can, and we'd love to talk about the outdoor climbing element. Next slide. I think that's it for me. So I know it's a work session and I've talked an awful lot, so stop. Again, we welcome your input. Okay. That's why we're here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that speed run through it. giving you a workout. Obviously it's workshop session, so no comment from the public. I would suggest for members that maybe we try to talk through the items individually and not try to just scatter shot at the concept. So I don't know if we want to start with proposed signage and work our way through if that seems reasonable. Okay. So welcome member input on that.
Refresh my memory, what does the rest of the signage look?
Well, was going to be my first question. So there is an approved sign plan for this area. So
It would be in conformance with that.
I think the only comment I had is I kind of felt like the sign could have been a little bigger.
You won't hear argument.
Well, and that's just me. It's because of the facade it's on. Like I get why we have for most of the retail. It just feels like there's a lot it's fighting with how much it has going on. That's just my general reaction, but I don't have the sign plan memorized personally, but I feel like it could get a little bit, in my mind there. The same.
Excuse me, I don't mind the signs as it is. First, I think it could be overpowering if it's any larger.
True.
That's my comment.
I don't think the sign should be any larger. And when you come back, I would like a cut sheet of the sign and the materials. Is it a plastic base with internal lighting?
The current ones on the other retail are a polymer or resin material, and they're lit by gooseneck lighting. So this one will not be internally lit. It'll be lit by the surface mounted gooseneck lighting. And that'll.
There's the gooseneck lighting.
We need to show that if we're gonna do that. All right.
I think that gooseneck lighting can actually make a facade look busy.
Okay.
I don't know.
The one thing you're dealing with though, Gabrielle, is there is a sign plan that governs that this board approved. So that's one of the things does have some control over certain restrictions.
By how it's going to be illuminated and dimension cut sheet. And I think it's fine as it is with this size. Is that the only sign you're proposing? I think there was another one.
The answer is yes.
Okay. All right, fine. Then that's all I have to say. And
I think
I wasn't here for the sign master.
No, I wanted to let you know, it's been a while. I haven't looked at it in quite some time either. So
One thing I wanted to address quickly on the sign is that here we were studying the scale of it and the placement, not the color. So when you see this in the future, it may be a different color.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Red
look
sign on red.
Logo. I mean, I'm fine with it being consistent with your brand.
We have 3 brand colors, so we have to operate with, and it is an open question whether it should be red on the red brick building. So I just put it
The
out.
other color option,
There's black and turquoise, and it can be a combination.
turquoise.
Turquoise.
We already knew what you were going to say, actually.
But I don't think I'm not going to get into the weeds with color.
other thoughts on the sign? I'm in the minority about it being a little.
Well,
bigger.
I would actually join the chairman, I guess, probably in the minority that facade is tall. And I do think there's some room for it to be a little bigger. And that facade to me with the windows and everything there is already fairly busy. So I don't think making it a little bit bigger is that big a deal. But
You're also against that. You have the Lidl right to the left of you, which is a big, even though we went through many reviews with that building, that facade is very prominent. So
I don't want to step on any toes, but when you have a big span of glass like that, sometimes you can put signage on the inside. And that way you don't put it on the facade of the building, but it still has a street presence and you could even illuminate it in the evening. And I don't know. That's kind of, a lot of times I've seen people that's a way to put signage that's not an exterior regulated sign. I don't want to, maybe I just open a can of worms. So, but you have a big span of glass. So I think maybe that could work too.
I think the desire is to bring as much natural light in as possible into that entrance hall because it's a nice large volume. And our thought is if we start to block the glazing, that we won't get as much light as we want.
I wasn't thinking a big sign band. I was thinking like maybe your logo behind anyway, not a lighting designer. So.
Very helpful.
again, I think knowing, again, I tried to go back through the sign plan, but it is a creature in its own right. But knowing when you're coming back, how you're looking at that against that and where we have room to move in that framework, because that's where only reason I brought it up, Ms. Hammock, is because it kind of it's something that kind of restricts already development based on.
Yeah, and I'd like to know how it's mounted to the brick, if you can put it in the mortar. I mean, these are stuff that seem minor, but like mortar joints.
That's all in the CSP. There's
Okay.
very specific mounting instructions. So I can send that out.
Those, the signage guidelines in its entirety, and we're going to explore options that you're suggesting.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, this is the first time I've had a chance to comment on any of the.
That's true.
Penitentiary.
That's what
You've had to recuse yourself every time.
Yeah. Do we have, does the ARB have, does the folks that are managing this have a statement that says what are the character defining features of the structure that are primary? I mean, what are we starting from? What's the baseline here? The gentleman's already mentioned the fact that a portion of the building to the north has already been truncated, and you've got the scar and the brickwork to indicate where that is. So I assume that's a relatively new large shop window in the front.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are new. Yes, so that was some of the initial outfitting for that. We're adding that storefront window facades that you see there were some of the things that the ARB approved in your time.
These historic windows still in the property?
Side ones, that was my recollection. Yep.
The Palladian windows that you see, those are all original and have been restored.
Okay. And so work has already been done on the building, and now you're seeking a tenant for the building.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Yes,
What we're talking about today is tenant improvements, not overall structure of the building.
yes, sir. I apologize.
Except that there's no, well, I don't know either, because I've been involved.
Every time we brought this location up, Mr. Burns was told to go into the hall and leave.
Yeah.
He was not allowed to take part in it due to a conflict of interest of working with the Park Service.
Glad you're here today.
There is we don't have it, but you did show us a photo showing the existing conditions. at
Yes,
this.
yes, I understand, but I
just thought maybe you
just
could
wanted
look at.
You
understand
wanted more context for the,
context is, yeah.
which is difficult. It is difficult to walk through having not been there yourself seeing it, but yes.
Well, I've gone and seen it.
Yeah, no, meaning like how we made those decisions during that time for those changes.
Okay, all right, I understand all that. And then, I'm a little I'm starting to go on to the next topic.
I think
Sorry.
everyone's ready to go into the mechanical.
Okay,
Take us right into it, sir.
just how many of these units do you need? You need all 6 in all 3 locations?
No, sir.
Those are 3 options.
Only 6 in total.
6 in total.
So what we try to do is show you kind of if we put everything in one location, either here or there, what would it be? That's why I'm not advocating that's what we do. I'm thinking, what if we did 2, 2, and 2, or whatever the case might be, but as it's a workshop.
But your renderings are showing, each one of those options is showing, here's all.
It's showing all 6 in those locations.
Okay.
So, and this, I'm sorry.
If we can clarify that each unit represents 2, you're asking for placement for 6, but technically 3 of these units.
They're like
3 of these double.
suitcase size.
It's a big suitcase.
It's a Samsonite.
So 3 pairs of 2.
3 pairs of
3 pairs.
Could I ask, so along with that thought is, where is your trash?
I'm gonna have to look to the landlord on that, because it's already been, that was determined as part of the development plan that was approved by you all at some earlier time. So I'm not sure.
It's probably been before you were here.
Go back to this plan at the beginning.
Trash. I don't know. No, I said anybody else need more cookies.
Okay, so we have trash locations in multiple locations throughout. For Sport Rock, it actually would be down in this area all the way across.
Somebody else's job.
So retail, they have a trash enclosure up here. There is also a trash enclosure, I believe, down here. And then Lidl, theirs is internal to the building. But again, Sport Rocks would be down in the southwest corner.
We don't have to.
Great question.
So the trash enclosures in the original Sally Port down there?
It's not in the Sally Port, but it's adjacent to it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. You guys approve that?
John's going for an entire experience of having not been around when we went through all these.
You approved what? I am.
And you're really only really going for me and Elise technically, and we.
Daniel made the motion to approve it, so.
There you go.
I'm out of the room, so.
Institutional knowledge.
So, with respect to the units, so it's 3 pairs, but I saw them as 6 individual footprints. So then we could put 1 pair at each of all these locations, or you may say, this really is not your desired location for the shopping center, that maybe we put 2 pair on one side and 1 pair on the other side to kind of tuck them and make them less visible. And again, we're looking to you to kind of help weigh these options.
What?
Joe, you had one.
Yeah, thank you. I have several on this. topic.
Okay.
Well, I was also recused from the meeting because the person presented the project. We were eligible for the project, so I could not be on the board. Review. So this, some of this new, me, we did it in our office. Anyways, if you go back to the aerial photograph that was under construction thing.
This one, or the one, this one?
Actually, that was good because the other units, air conditioner units where you had them are between the prison wall and the back of the building. So
They're right in there?
no.
The example ones you showed.
Children's
prison, they're.
Oh, okay. By the far left.
Misunderstood, sorry.
Yeah, and then, that wasn't grade lines. So
Dig it.
some significant. So those people's front doors for those buildings are through that colonnade. They walk by those air conditioners all the time to go to the front of the units, which is, there's a playground, there's a daycare or a play school, something like that's there. And if I recall, the original design for that concrete places for a potential band or something like that. So it's a presentational area as opposed to a rock climbing area. So now you're taking some of the public space and putting it to a private entity, which I have an issue with that. So that parade lawn is really common open space. So it was always set up for if there was an event that could happen for those people in there. Because just think, some of those tennis points may want to have a fair out here for kids or for whatever, but it's kind of already secluded by a climbing structure. So that's, and we're not gonna talk about it now, but I'm gonna talk about the AC unit. Interesting, you said there's light bulbs there, so why not? It seems like you have the wherewithal perhaps to do a light well that would encapsulate those air conditioners below grades, and therefore, because you have a downstairs, you want HVAC climatize it too as well, so why not put them, so you don't see them at all?
I like the idea, but technically it won't work well because there's a certain amount of clear area you need around.
Bigger. Make the light wells bigger.
Again, that, at this point, I wasn't looking to expand the light well other than just to restore
I
it.
have no problem with
But
that.
I'm open to those ideas.
Outside, out of mind.
Okay.
And put a grate over it. Because it's gonna help for the noise, all the above. Because essentially, those other units are by a brick wall. You don't hear, you not hear or see them in this, I would call it a sacred open space of the project, quite frankly. So my thing would be is to put them below grade or, in a light well, that's serviceable, of course. There's already precedence for light well with the existing structure. So hence, it'll be bigger and so forth. And graded over top. I think it works real well.
We definitely can take that into consideration.
I think Miss or was it Mr. Zellman? I wasn't sure.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Hammock.
You keep saying restore light well.
There's an existing concrete structure in the grass.
Sorry, what?
There is an existing concrete.
That was filled in.
That was
It was built in 1936, I think it was.
Is there any other existing light wells
Yeah,
in the
there's-
complex?
There's another one.
Okay, and what, does it have a grate like what you're showing or?
No, that one's covered under with concrete with this.
The one over, see, there's in this model, the other one, it was a light well that was double the length. And there were 2 windows, one over here and one over here.
Yeah.
And they were open to the elements before, and you just looked at the concrete coming above the ground by a few inches.
Okay.
It's been filled in with dirt and grass, so we were looking to kind of excavate out and restore at least one of them.
I think it's a great idea. I like your idea. At what point do you remove so much dirt that you have to brace? I don't know. I don't want to create like an engineering problem.
No, it's not. I mean, right now it's a concrete box filled up with soil for that.
Yeah, but I mean, if we made it big enough for the HVAC units.
Well, it's gonna be larger, but they'll be just a concrete box. HVAC.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be honest, as one of your architectural historians here, I think creating additional light wells where they don't exist is going to create problems from a tax credit perspective. And
I don't think
other,
so, 'cause it's gonna significantly mitigate visible HVAC units. I mean, it's a creative solution.
I also-
I think we dig in, the problem is, can we do it without putting risk to the historic structure and then archaeology? Like how, I don't know how much dirt we're moving, but
Mr. Zellman.
Before I think we go further in the discussion from a legal perspective, I think we have to be careful because we have allowed HVAC units above ground on other structures. And so we have to, from a consistency standpoint, I think, be careful. Now, we do have a different element here with these,
These are what are out there now.
right, we do have a different element with the light wells that's different. I just, if we have to do three pairs of two, I don't know how much earth we're moving
no, it does create
to
a,
do that. And I don't know if the second light well is even available because there's a door there now. Right.
It's too small. The existing light wells won't accommodate even the footprint of the equipment, much less the breathing room around it. So we would have to create it larger. Essentially, we would need at least a minimum of 3 feet all the way around it of additional space to allow it to breathe per unit.
I feel like you're talking about digging a small crater.
and I do think effort should be made to keep them off the main square.
Okay.
Which it sounds like you have options to not put them there.
I definitely.
Again, we thought we would just kind of flush it.
No, I think it's a great presentation. I think that's perfect how you illustrated it for us. So we don't, no, I think it's been really great so far, but that's my feedback about the units.
Jack, you look like you had an observation you wanted to share.
Yes, Bob touched on it. The free airflow area around the units is like 4 feet. And if the units themselves are 2 feet wide, all of a sudden you're going to have a very large well to accommodate those units below grade. And I do have concerns about where that goes and what the implications would be and everything. It would be an elegant solution if it weren't such a large solution.
Ms. Murray?
Remind you of the theme with this site, industrial.
Yes.
Again, I'm just coming in, so my thought would be, whether we break the pairs up so they're not as intrusive or whatever.
That's actually my biggest worry is this amount of sound. If you put both of these are next to walkway areas in the rear.
Right.
And so if you congregate them in one area, I'm just, as Joe's talking about, the people utilizing the other parts of spaces, how are we managing that so that if someone's going by, if we collect them all together, that's going to be a pretty loud, because you're wanting to keep that space nice and cool. People are working out and they're, doing this activity. It's got to be, so they're going to be running a consistent amount of time. So I'd hate for folks to go, oh, I'm not walking that way. That goes by the condensers. That's, that's where I lost my hearing, my left ear.
This shot is by the parking lot though.
Yeah.
This faces the all these over here.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily against having some in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's, as Ms. Murray pointed out, that there is a industrial kind of, it's prison complex. So the theme we're working with here is very,
It is better.
But it's reversible too.
Yeah. And I mean, this aerial does shows a great job too. There might be some discussion you might want to take about what screening or things we could do in that situation.
That was my next thing. I'd love to explore a little bit more, whether it's landscape screening. I'm hesitant to want to do something in the way of structure, like a wall, because it's just not really, it's not there now.
That's not honest. I mean, just be
That's
it.
true. I know there are other things that have been, we'll call it screening, but it's not really, is the iron picket fence, the black fence. I think honestly that landscaping will allow it to breathe better and we can give it the spacing it needs. And I think it might be more desirable, but that's just my personal opinion on it.
Maybe if I'm wrong, but isn't the iron fencing fee Virginia Department of Historic Resources as opposed to our preference?
That's correct.
Yes, I believe so.
Iron fencing is the Department of Historic Resources preference. We preferred solid fencing, wooden fencing for the preschool.
Okay.
We were overruled. So this board is not wet. However, Virginia VDHR might still be wet to the iron.
Okay.
And obviously the information you'll get back from them anytime now regarding the initial packet you sent will be very helpful to inform that too. And Jack's very familiar with the balancing act of these two entities here. And then I saw Mr. Burns, you had
two things. One is don't spread the ugliness in 3 different locations. keep it where it is.
Yes, sir.
This single location. The parking lot side, when you had the aerial photograph, it showed looking down, like from the Lidl parking lot, looking down on that. Can you go back to that? There, okay. Those units there are going to be just lost in the noise of all what's going on in that lot.
I agree.
They're not going to be a big visual presence. I don't know what you guys decided, but basically prisons didn't have trees and stuff. And so if you start saying, we're going to introduce landscaping in our industrial former penitentiary space, that
We
maybe.
had that here.
That's why Joe doesn't know much about it. They didn't give him much work.
Apparently didn't have air conditioning either.
But anyways, and then, yeah, and then your proposal there to put it would be that would be what, the northwest side?
I think so.
Okay, you're gonna get a little bit of sun shading, which might make those things not have to work as hard.
Okay.
So the other two locations, you're gonna get south sun directly on your unit.
In here and on the other side.
And then to have that nicely manicured sod back there, and then have these things that are like boom, 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 and you're not gonna notice the noise so much in the parking lot side, but you're gonna notice it back there, because that looks like it's a bucolic setting, even though it was a prison.
Right.
It's kind of,
Hey, City Beautiful movement.
yeah. Then the concrete pad, was that left over from the prison, or was that put in specific for the purpose that Mr. Pompey mentioned?
I believe there was a concrete pad there originally. It was not that large, and that was added.
Right.
So that was so obviously that was meant to be
Some kind of
stage or an event
Exactly.
base.
So that-
Okay.
And is that where you're proposing the climbing wall?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's where the outdoor boulder would be.
up there boulder, but
It is not the entire parade ground. It is
no,
really at that north end.
yeah.
So we're trying to respect the rest of the parade ground for.
I mean, limit was the edge of the existing pavement. We're just proposing to bring it.
Yeah.
Building.
Before we jump, let's try to wrap the AC and then we can,
The AC.
I want to,
Yes. Yeah, I would take back the areaway. I think the location in the front is great, as long as we use the picket fence with the metal panel as approved by HPRB.
Thank you. That's good.
All good.
Again, we were looking to glean as much as we can in this meeting. Okay.
okay, what's our next one? Is that the light well?
Yes, sir.
Not light bulb, yeah.
Yeah.
About the light well.
Is anybody opposed? to this?
I think we all like the idea of restoring something.
Sure.
Oh,
Imagine we'd be-
wow, check, boom,
Yeah.
there we go.
But related to the outdoor boulder is, you even showed, and I'm just getting to the point of the light well may be less functional than you think if you put a gigantic structure in it that creates a shadow. If you're drawing,
You're actually seeing the shadow. Depending which way the sun and time of day.
say that the light well, great idea, but something else might block a little light.
The desire was just to bring natural light any way we can at that lower level. So, but in this scenario, you do see that the concrete as proposed is going up to the edge of the building. And just so we have more of an all-weather, all-season surface for that area.
Well, let's talk about the 20-ton boulder in the room.
The boulder. Okay. Yes.
I mean, and I'm as someone who was here with Miss Murray when we went through this, I reckon a lot of the design of this space was subjective on the fact that we did not have identified uses at that time. It was all, how much can the space be ready for some type of use? So there were ideas of, well, you could do this here, or this tenant could do this, or that tenant could do that, but all of it would depend on who came to these spaces. So a lot of what we were doing as a board at that time was trying to plan for hopefully future development and future usage of the space. So I think in general, this board is absolutely enthusiastic that somebody wants to use this space, because that's the biggest, any space that's not being used is obviously wasting away. So I'm going to say it flat out, I don't have a problem with the boulder because I think it's using a space and it can go away if it ever does. It's not permanent. That's just my hot take on it.
No, it is a permanent boulder.
It can be moved, but these gentlemen can move it if they ever decide they're not.
Frame. It's not concrete, but
Yeah.
it's in the lease.
Yeah, it's in the lease. It has to go with them if they don't, if they go away. Yeah.
It's removable. It will add an element of life to the spaces currently not being used. And maybe it will lead to uses. Maybe they'll say, no, we really want the bandstand back, or maybe we want a bandstand at the other end.
Well, two things.
So I understand your concept, but
Sure.
I think, Joe, I think that the outdoor climbing over that could be removed at some point, a good element.
Think of the people watching.
All right.
Speak to that.
Oh,
Actually, that's my initial thought was actually, I didn't mind it either because it does activate the space. I think it needs some serious refinement from what is drawn right now.
Yes, sir.
And I'm on the board of the Architectural, I'm also on the board of the Workhouse Foundation across the street. Okay. And that's art. Okay, so if we made this art, not just looks like a boulder, so are the knobs and everything. Contact those guys or an artist that can make it an art piece. So when it's not being used, it looks like art. I have an issue with and that includes the shade element. And don't just have this, retrofit kind of thing on it. Make it like it all belongs together. Don't be hit apart. And I will support it wholeheartedly if it looks like a piece of art. No one's on it, but it's also functional when people are on it. And plus, I want to learn how to rock them. So honestly, God, I think it's a great idea and make that fence, make it look art-like also. We don't just have this, okay, it's, this 8-foot high pointed fence, that's great, neat for security, but make it so it speaks art because you're in an art areas and let's do it. And that could be even a backdrop for a stage in the future.
All right, Ms. Hammock,
We agree.
I think in terms of the fence, we thought we were constrained by the VDHR.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's the reuse of that fence. It's the same one that the daycare had. Daniel, if you wouldn't mind flipping over to the precedent images. We had two pretty fun looking.
Yeah, I think either one is good. I think just make that structure, it's pretty interesting. It'd be interesting if it's a shade structure actually went beyond the fence. So that actually could be a stage canopy. I'm just thinking out loud,
We're thinking in this space, there'll be nights when there will be a band, there'll be nights when there'll be a DJ, there'll be competitions in the evening.
Hard rock.
Yeah.
Music.
all right, I want to give Ms. Hammock to let her share her thoughts as well.
well, to Ms. Bagnum's point, my husband grew up in the area and he remembers when this was a jail. And he used to see like the prisoners. So like to see men working outside, I think is precedent for that. I don't like the fence. I would like it to be lighter. Like maybe it's what we just saw at the Holland Hills. Because it's not a historic element, right? It's new, it's insertion. If it was the wire that we just saw at Holland Hills, I think visually it would be lighter. That kind of plays into the whole rope climbing. I don't know. I just think
They
the
don't
fence.
want people to climb the fence though.
I know, but this to me, it's too visually oppressive and it just doesn't work with what we're trying to achieve, I think, with the installation feeling of the climbing wall. I also don't like the stretch canopy like you would see at a preschool playground. Maybe the canopy is integral. Maybe it's the canopy, like my play structure in my backyard, like my husband takes it off in the winter and on in the summer. Like maybe there's a canopy that's part of the rock that can come on. I don't know. I just think that it cheapens or it really takes away from the cool sculptural component of the climbing wall once you add the stretch canvas and the kind of generic picket fence. And I don't know if VDHR is going to agree with me or not.
I think we were working within the limitations of what we were allowed to use on the property or what's been approved. And I think that goes back to the black iron. I think that I can't speak on the landlord, but I was gonna say, we're glad to look at other options. I didn't know that we were able.
It's the VDHR and this board have been kind of diametrically opposed on flexibility with these types of materials. And one thing I could hope is that maybe if a conversation were started early on, if you share the feedback we're giving, that we'd like to see some flexibility here, maybe they could be more open-minded to that. But again, Yes. Ms.
Well, just particularly because the fact this is not an element you're trying to screen. I mean, maybe there is a insurance requirement to protect it when it's not in use, I'm guessing. But in terms of DHR's, it seems like they proposed the metal picket fence as a way to screen unsightly elements, but.
Children, I know, right? I'm a father of two, so I don't find them unsightly.
I was thinking of the one around the other outdoor
Okay.
AC units.
Sure.
Yeah.
Question, just, okay, if one of the kids' play space in the crawly thing, it is this big cage they're inside. And they go inside this cage and then they're crawling up all on around. I don't know, maybe instead of a low fence, maybe it's like a cage, like they have with kids. You know what I'm talking about? Those,
The geodesic dome type thing.
Like in the
I know.
WWE.
I don't know, but
Like Thunderdome?
you know, that's kind of edgy if it's a cage. I don't know, just.
Okay, excuse me, it's like a wall ball structure. Wall ball structure is a play structure that's vertical, that's in a cage. We did one in Arlington, and it's basically, it's like a caged area that kids climb on. They have actually climbing wall pickets on it that they can go into, things. But
I don't know, just
I mean, there has to be cost limitations.
Yes, Miss.
And we have
in
a
Mohawk.
specific product that we use in our business, which, you know, is a artificial climbing wall, like you all may have seen in the Summer Olympic Games. So we can't stray too far away from the thing that is our business. We absolutely, I mean, if you want to lose all your hair, one thing you can do is be the CEO of an indoor climbing gym and try and get insurance. So we absolutely have to have, you know, these fences to keep it separated so that no one is on the wall without having signed our assumption of risk form. So, you know, we need some sort of physical boundary. And so we went with the VDHR spec, but we can certainly work to find out if there's flexibility for what that is.
All right.
To have that conversation.
Samantha, you,
I do have something. I totally get what everybody say, and in some sense, I agree with that. So looking at this first look about this border, I was happy to see it and in a green lawn, but then start to look at the fence and look at the canopy, and then I was like, I'm not quite sure about it. So echo what has been said, if it's a art object in this green space treated as a concept, that would be a thumbs up. Now looking at this rendering, I was thinking, well, perhaps lose the canopy or even pull the canopy away from the building and make it really kind of standing alone. Same thing may perhaps applicable to the fence. So giving some space to the building.
Right through here, and that would go back to the daylight coming back down in the window.
Make it, the whole thing is more standing alone in that big open space. The other thing is this sidewalk. Well,
The one that runs right through here?
right, I
No one uses
think that's not original, is it?
I would have to go back and look.
it was.
Because I hate to see people cannot go across here. I just feel like the whole space is kind of walkable, and try to encourage, understand that you want to connect indoor to outdoor. So I don't have a solution yet.
That's target.
Yeah, I appreciate things. I would say you can maybe move it to the next colonnade opening, you know, so it's in front of the, like, can you go back to the aerial photographs again?
Sure.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, just bring that sidewalk plan south towards us, so you just move it.
Sorry.
So that they can still cut across the lawn.
Through here, just move it like down in front of that.
Yeah, but again, if you do that canopy, I think if that canopy overhangs, so that, because that you already have a staged presence, and maybe that concrete or surface area gets a little larger, so there could be a stage as in front of that fence, seriously. Because right now, I think that'd be really cool.
Don't people want to train for the elements by actually don't we want it in the elements without a sunscreen? So people can train.
Seeing a head shake over there saying, no, don't think that. I
don't know, I've
do
never
think
gone.
there is some,
Yeah.
there's some real discordance going on right now with the fence that's around the object, the boulder and the boulder itself. And because I think you could present that in a way that definitely, as I think Mr. Plumpy says, energizes space, but that fencing around it currently feels, it feels out of place with the, they don't really.
Well, these are for liability.
We're not trying to.
No, I know you need the fence, but what I'm saying is the current fence idea that's there, if there were a way for that to be more, I guess, aligned with what's inside the space in some way. Something to that respect. I mean, again, that's the question I think Ms. Mangum brought up. It seemed VDHR was particularly concerned about screening. You can't screen this. There's not a way to screen it. And I don't think I think it's fine not to screen it because it's promoting the activity too, but.
Maybe we can explore the idea. I love the idea of art, sculpture, art in that space.
Right.
Maybe the fence becomes an extension of that.
That'd be awesome.
You know what I mean? Whether it has color or some other form that would kind of complement
Yeah.
what's trying to happen out there. Something, and these guys haven't talked to me about it yet, but if you're going to do that and make it an art element, maybe it'd be nice to illuminate it at night ground level.
Oh, yeah, that's,
I mean, make it dramatic.
Signage in a way. I mean, it's gonna be representing.
Also, get on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of shifting it.
yeah, make a little.
I like that a lot because then you leave the pad for other uses. And it also takes it a little bit off, a little pressure off the building, I think, by moving it.
Okay.
And Jack, you said that you sent this to just the preliminary package to VDHR right now. So you're just waiting on initial comments?
We have had a preliminary meeting, but we have filed an actual application. What would show this?
What did they say at the preliminary meeting?
Well, at the preliminary meeting, we actually showed them a 15-meter tall climbing structure that is taller than any of the surrounding buildings.
And they said, no.
And I'll let Michael elaborate on the significance of 15 meters and why that was an exciting thought. But the comment we got back from VDHR was, that's a little too big. If you bring it down and make it more sculptural and artistic, Jessica thought she could support that. But yes, we started out with a 15-meter tower. Michael, would you give the quick background on that?
Yeah, if any of
I
you,
think it's interesting.
if any of you all have been in any of our climbing gyms, you may have seen really tall roped walls where you actually tie in and you have a partner. In the Olympics, the rock climbing has been in the Olympics, the summer games now for the second time. And the Olympic climbing walls are 15-meter walls. So that's what people who are in the sport of climbing, that's the height that they're training at. And our indoor facilities have those walls. So we thought, because of the low height of the existing historic building, it would be really interesting to deliver that same sort of height outside. And VDHR considered that for about 11 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, could you not, I know this is money, just put a hole in your floor and just go down to the basement. That's 15 meters, right?
It's not, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Try to help.
You bust people.
Well, I'm hoping they can be,
Mr. Burns.
there's open-minded level of consideration of the fact that these spaces need to be used. It's one thing for us to want to protect them. If we can't find a use for them, then it's pointless at that point.
Yeah.
But Mr. Burns.
From the applicant's standpoint, I mean, I think the idea of shifting the wall to the south to give the building some space, that definitely resonates with me. And the point about this is not a historic element, this is a brand new element. And so why should the security fence or security screening seek to be a historic element when the thing it's surrounding is not? I mean, there's a good logical train there. So, I think we'll see what we can do with VDHR on that front.
Like, I think make that fence part of the sculpture element.
Yeah.
It's not black, and I think you may get a home run.
All right.
I have one.
Well, let me get John. I want to get John. He got cut off once before Kate, so I got to let him in.
Just a comment for your edification. These are large buildings. They look like one-story buildings, but they're really big buildings. And so I think that the way in which you've created your presentation it accentuates the new features, I think to the detriment of what you're proposing. And so think about that, maybe some longer views to show what is this really like in relation to the overall grass area there. It's a really small footprint.
Yeah. We can do that.
And, but, think of that, because you just look at that and you think, yeah, that's a one-story building. But look at the height of the man door there,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
That tiny little thing there, that's taller than any person in this room. And so then you think of that in terms of scale. You have to keep that in mind. Maybe put a few people.
Yeah.
People in the renderings or something to show the
Spider-Man on,
no, but sometimes the way in which you present stuff hurts your case because it makes it appear like it's a larger intrusion than it may actually be in reality. So let's keep that in mind when you're considering how to render the presentation.
I agree with you. We had looked at a couple options. We came here tonight, our thought is we were doing shots from across the parade ground and it was hard to really tell that this wasn't fused to the face of the building when you come across the way. So we said, let's get in and show that there is some separation, but you're right. Maybe we also look at maybe some elevated vantage points even that might help better illustrate what's going on, but we try to give it scale, but I totally get what you're saying.
Kay, why don't you bring us home?
Okay, so let's go back to the cage idea. I'm just, and if it goes up and it's peaked, and it goes all the way to the reason I'm saying that is that I've been in security areas where they have a nice tall wall, somebody throws a ladder up, climbs over, and they're in. I don't think this is as protective.
Keep rock climbers out of anywhere is very. Would stop me if I was 15 years old.
You vault it, yeah.
Kids, they're very resourceful.
Oh, yeah. You'll be surprised. 4-year-olds.
We were planning on electrifying the top.
There you go.
There you go.
And that is so silly.
We asked you to energize the space.
Solar panels, that's how we're powering them.
So-
Shock.
I'm imagining we're probably gonna, another workshop in the future, is what
We knew we're coming back, but we really wanted to vet as much as we could from you.
No, and I appreciate all the concepts and everything you shared. I'm hoping that there's some creative ideas that can come out of it.
Want to go, team building event.
Well, it'd be interesting, whenever you go for your final approval and to have the meeting at the workhouse. Which is down, or maybe even in this facility.
And give us beer.
Seriously.
Okay.
Just think.
Oh, I'm gonna,
See them climb.
Mr. Burns has one more closing question.
In this particular location, this is not an HOD, this is an area that the Board of Supervisors asked us to provide oversight for. Does that oversight include interiors?
It does not, no.
It is, so it's just only exteriors?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no other mechanical equipment on the roof or anything, right?
No, sir. The only outdoor equipment were the VRF outdoor
Or like-
lights that we talked about.
Exhaust fans, like exhaust for toilets, something like that.
Um,
Just think about that.
That's a very- I think there's some attic vent opportunities that up there that we would try to utilize.
Okay.
Just to make it not visible.
Good. Thank you.
And I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, there might be a future benefit. This is thinking for more Jack Perkins, that maybe because of the amount of members we have that are not as familiar with the space, it might benefit us to maybe make a trip out there in the future to actually see the space. There's a lot of hoops we have to jump through to have members do anything in any combination other than two, but it might be helpful to see some of that space that, and we can also share some of the stuff that we've gone through laboriously to get to where we are, but it's a great space to see too. So
We'd be very happy to host the board on site.
When do you want to move in there?
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, but you're looking end of 25 or?
Yeah.
middle?
This time next year.
Okay.
Okay.
Christmas party then?
Right.
The Christmas party there. next
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, that ends our items for workshop. We're gonna go on to presentations. I'll pause for 5 minutes in case somebody needs to use the restroom. Please go do so. Ms. Mangum, please prepare those ginger cookies.
They're coming down.
Send them this way.
Executive, man.
Um,
Ginger breaks the piece.
Such a bear.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I should send these down, right?
Well, you worried me. You said like, you said I had onion rings.
Because he said you had a double onion sandwich.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I'm like, do I? I mean, I had a sandwich with onion on it, you know.
I had kava before. So, yeah.
Red one, please, sir.
Yeah, but they are coming. Green ones too.
But we had the green ones.
Oh, we're good.
They're good. Thank you, sir.
Shall return.
I will pass.
It won't take me long.
I'll take them, if you don't mind.
They've got all kinds of thoughts about our approvals.
Breakfast too.
They were some tough meetings.
I have that. I
So
spent a lot of time in the hallway.
And I mean, with both Richard and Bob on the board at that time, some of the times they were all for some of the ideas, and other times, I think we were doing roll call votes several different times.
I know what's
I-
not in an inch.
I go down there periodically just to see what's going on. And one of the big missed opportunities is they saw cut the new openings in the walls. They should have made that jagged. Somebody said,
Oh, wow, it's like a breakout.
yeah. I mean, it's so surgical. It looks like it was a design exit, not a break in the wall.
That is an amazing idea.
That they really missed an opportunity. And the old Sally Port, right, that was prominently featured in Iron Jawed Angels, the movie about the suffragettes. And now they put their dumpster back.
Yep.
Like, really?
Good.
And if they want to have concerts, they should do it in the ball field.
Yeah.
You know, do it like Bruce Springsteen at Nationals Park, you know.
I don't think they're having concerts back there. That's, it's not really. But I mean, you remember, it was so, we're all like, well, this could happen here.
Also, they've got the ball there. So it's not like they need the parade.
Yeah.
And this could have more easily gone into the powerhouse at.
Oh, my God. Hey, you could have got a 15-meter tall thing in powerhouse, I bet, right?
Yeah.
You know, sooner or later, somebody's going to say, why don't we do some outdoor climbing displays, right? And we'll just go climb the original walls.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
You could have.
Put the wall back, original height.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna sell popcorn. I just sit out there and walk.
I didn't see it.
All right.
Sounds fun.
No, I'm okay with the building. Okay. I mean, we can get the presentation.
I'm not sure why and rock climbing.
I'll go ahead and.
All right, we're just missing Rachel. Once Rachel Karen.
I do a very laborious meeting.
I'm gonna put them up. I know.
Bodies and it's that kind of thing. Lawyers and.
You can just say, look, and now the times are over, the good times were all. All right, yeah, I think we're at 5, so let's bring us back to session. We're on to our presentations. Our first presentation is the update on the plan amendment, the 22 III BR1 Centerville Planning Study. And this is by the Department of Planning and Development. And I think we have Mr. Michael Burton. We're here to present for us. So, sir.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Again, my name is Michael Burton with the Department of Planning and Development. I'm also joined by Clara Johnson, also with the Department of Planning and Development. And we wanted to take a little bit of time just to provide you all with an update of the work that's happening in Centerville. We did have a plan amendment that was authorized in the fall of 2022 by the board that asked us to consider new planning principles and new planning ideas for the Centerville community. Next slide. Quickly, just for context, the study area is outlined here on the map. It's very important to note that there are a lot of people that live outside of this boundary that consider themselves members of Centerville. But from a planning perspective, this is the geography that has to evaluate. It extends from Stringfellow Road in the east, all the way to Stone Road in the west, down Centerville Road or Route 28 in the south, and the New Braddock Road area. If you can see in the center, there's a dotted line. In our plan guidance, that's what we refer to as a suburban core area. It's an activity center, so it is an area in the plan where we encourage future growth. Next slide, please. As I mentioned really quickly at the beginning, we were asked to establish new planning priorities for the Centerville community. Next slide, please. And since that time, staff has been busy doing a couple of things. When we initially started the study at the beginning of 2023, we set out to have a really robust public engagement effort. If you don't know, or you haven't visited Centerville, it's a very, very diverse community, not just culturally, but economically as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we got an understanding of the institutions, got an understanding of the people who call Centerville home. And so for the earlier part of 2023, we really spent time talking with key stakeholders in the area, many of which ended up being able to participate on our community task force that's looking at the study now. Next slide, please. So why Centerville? Why now? Well, it's been about 30 years since the existing comprehensive plan language for Centerville was written. So it's relatively outdated. It was last reviewed when the comprehensive plan went through a comprehensive rewrite called Planning Horizons. That happened in the early 1990s. Centerville Farms came online in the later part of the 90s. And that's really the last time we've seen a lot of development or growth in the Centerville area. Next slide, please. We did put out a community survey very early on in the project. We wanted to gather as much feedback from community members as possible. We had about 687 participants. We asked 4 questions. They were very broad. We tried to remain or stay away from technical questions. We really wanted to know what the lived experience was like in Centerville. How are you getting around? Where are your favorite places? What places do you value most? And we got a lot of good feedback. We heard about the desire to have gathering spaces in the community. We heard about the desire to protect the park spaces, to celebrate the history in the community. We heard about walkability, and of course, alternative modes of transportation, all of which will be consistent throughout the study. We've heard from the task force as well. Next slide, please. Some additional context. Most of the area today is developed for residential use, so it's very much a residential community. There's a number of single-family homes. You can see those outlined in red, or filled in red rather, as well as multifamily development, sort of concentrated in the center around the intersection of 28, 29. This is Highway 29 running east to west. This is Route 28 running north to south, and then I-66. There are also a number of non-residential uses, commercial uses in the core area. You can see them identified in the orange, and some institutional spaces as well. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I did want to include the HOD just to demarcate it so you got a sense of where that was in the context of the planning area. Next slide. Similarly, we know that there's a lot of history in the area. But really Centerville exploded probably in the early to mid 1980s, as much of Western Fairfax County did. So much of the development that's on the ground today was built between 1980 and after 1992, of course. But there are some sites that had development on it that date back to at least the Civil War time period. Next slide, please. Or there's going to be the mark. There we go. Next slide. So what have we been up to? I mentioned briefly that we had a task force that was hard at work developing new ideas and recommendations for the community. They started their work earlier in 2024 in the March timeframe, so right at the outset of spring. We started by walking through a lot of the existing conditions in the community, talking about some of the opportunities and challenges that folks opportunities and challenges that the task force had identified within the Centerville community. And then in the summer, we asked them to really start thinking about the future. How can we focus or improve some of those pain points in the community, and what should some of our guiding principles be? So late in the spring, early in the summer, there were a number of meetings where the task force had some really good discussions about what some of those principles are, and we'll share that here in a moment. We did have a community workshop later in that summer. It was in September of this year. We met with a wider group of the community, asked them very similar questions. We put maps in front of them, asked them to point to places that they would like to see grow in the future. Next slide, please. I won't go through all of the draft guiding principles in detail, but I will read them or read the highlights of them really quickly. There are 8 principles in total. The first one speaks to providing a variety of accessible public spaces where people can gather, celebrating Centerville's diversity. We mentioned that a moment ago. Promoting environmental sustainability, and that includes enhancing stormwater management and tree canopy opportunities. Developing a vibrant town center. Again, this gets back to the gathering spaces, places where the community can come together. One of the things that we heard really quickly is that Centerville doesn't really have a center, ironically. If we can create a center there where folks feel like they can come mix and mingle, that would be ideal. Next slide, please. Another goal is to meet a continuum of housing needs that supports the diverse community. Again, it's not only diverse culturally, but socioeconomically as well. Provide a safe multimodal transportation network that provides alternative modes of travel, provide a variety of accessible community institutional spaces, and last but certainly not least, identify, foster, celebrate, and preserve historical and cultural sites, landmarks, and resources in Centerville, which we know there are plenty of. Next slide, please. So back to that workshop really quickly. There were about, I would say, 20 or so folks that attended the workshop. That included our task force members. Our task force is about 19 members. A few of them came to the meeting and they sat at the different tables and were able to hear some of the community feedback. And we really asked people to draw out where their ideas were. So we had maps, we had images, and we asked them to tell us what they saw or what they would envision a future of Centerville or what the future of Centerville could be. We got a lot of good feedback. We had tables named after school mascots, so that was really fun. And I think the group really enjoyed themselves. A couple of things that came out of that workshop. I mentioned it before, but walkability. Being able to walk in the neighborhood is something that many folks wanted to enhance. The central gathering space that we mentioned before, as well as identifying opportunity areas. What are the properties or what are the areas within the Centerville community where we could see future growth occur? Next slide, please. And these were some of the areas that the task force and the workshop participants identified. So again, if you're familiar with the area, Lane Unit E is Trinity Center. Subunit D1 is one of the major shopping centers. It's a large retail shopping center called Centerville Square, as well as C1. Most of the developable areas, the focus areas that were identified on the Route 29 corridor. There's at least one outlier that's down Route 28, and that's where the movie theater is, if you're familiar with the Centerville area. Most of our recommendations and most of the discussion that the task force has had to date focuses on these specific areas. Staff, as a part of our update, will visit some of the grayed out areas that are not highlighted, just to make sure that the language there is up to date as well. Next slide, please. Or the HOD mark as well. I did want to mention really quickly, I'm sorry, Jonathan, you can go back. B2, both B2 and B5 are within the HOD. B2 is colored differently because there's only 2 small parcels in the corner of that lot, commercial properties. I think it's a daycare now and a church that were identified as a potential opportunity for redevelopment. So I just wanted to distinguish that. Next slide, please. Focusing in on that HOD area, just to orient folks, this is looking north. This is Highway 29. This is the Bolero. If anyone loves to bowl, that's the CVS there on the corner. And then much of the space that you see behind it is the HOD. You can just mark it. These are the 2 properties here. This is the place of worship as well as the daycare there that the task force has talked about. Some of the properties within this HOD are historic. I think this is Gyra Cafe, I believe. So that's
Great bakery.
Great bakery. It is a great bakery. It is a great bakery. That particular structure is historic, but the other properties here are we've had some discussion about thinking about the future of what they could be. There are two things that came out of looking at this particular land unit. One is the activation of the park space that's currently in the HOD. A lot of it is the community considers and the task force considers underutilized. It's fenced in, it's somewhat overgrown in certain places. And so we've heard a desire to really celebrate the history that's there and invite people into that space. If it's something like picnic tables or benches, just something to activate the green areas, much of which is currently owned by the Park Authority. The other major theme is ensuring that, one, the character of the redevelopment in this area reflects the historic nature of the overlay district, and leveraging development in these areas to also enhance and connect to the park spaces that are in the HOD. So there's been discussion about the relationship between redevelopment of some of these commercial areas and the HOD. Maybe they work together, maybe they can complement each other in some way, all of which are ongoing discussions at this point. I will note that at the moment, the task force is currently working to help us quantify what we call a plan scenario. It's a part of our evaluation process through any plan amendment. But specific recommendations for these areas will follow in 2025. Next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight, it's crudely drawn, but I wanted to highlight sort of the HOD area, and you can see how encompassing it is across the community. Next slide, please. As a part of our process, we do entertain other proposals within the broader study area. At the outset, before this study was actually authorized, we did receive a proposal to look at a property outside of the core area, but within the study area on Wharton Lane. This is a currently undeveloped property on Wharton Lane. It's approximately 5 acres in size. And the proposal that we received were 12 residential units, I think single-family units at the time. That particular property today is planned for 1 to 2 dwelling units an acre, up to 3 dwelling units an acre with conditions, and I wanted to share those conditions with you. Today or currently, the property can develop with at least 5 single-family homes, and it does not require a plan amendment. The comprehensive plan does allow for that currently. But in looking at the additional residents, we would need to review the considerations. Next slide, please.
Hey, Daniel, is that the property that the person wants to be removed from the district?
That's been discussed. Yeah.
Thank you. Just jogging my memory.
So, and I'm glad you made that comment. Just to be clear, the comprehensive plan amendment does not consider removal from the HOD. So
Right.
our purview.
I chatted with a gentleman approximately a year ago.
Perfect. Next slide, I'm sorry. So again, I mentioned that the existing plan does allow for some level of development. However, in order to achieve the upper level density, the 3 dwelling units an acre, there are some conditions. And these are the 2 critical conditions that staff are currently reviewing in partnership with our heritage resources and archaeology staff. The first is to consider consolidation with land unit F, which is in Centerville Farms, and we'll jump back to that map in a second. And to ensure provision of access from land unit F to Wharton Lane. And the second consideration is the preservation of Civil War earthworks, fortifications, and including a transition area around that. And again, we have other staff that are supporting us in that effort. If we could jump back to the previous slide, Jonathan.
Who owns this square, the 5-acre square that you're talking about?
It's
I think it's
Privately owned.
it's privately owned.
That's the gentleman that I spoke to.
Okay, so privately owned, one owner.
Who wishes
Okay.
to remove.
Okay, I wasn't sure, we're like Fairfax Parkland, okay, one private owner, okay.
So I wanted to highlight this to talk about land unit F really quickly. The consideration that's currently in the comprehensive plan, there's a plan option for land unit F that would allow it to redevelop. And that plan option was added back in the 90s, similar to the way much of the remaining area around here developed with higher intensity uses. The consideration to do that, however, was also contingent upon acquiring this particular property. So it needed to consolidate in order to take advantage of the redevelopment option. This did not go forward, obviously, at that time. And so for our review, The question that we're asking is whether the considerations, those contingencies still make sense as a part of the comprehensive plan. I don't know how likely, any of this is to redevelop in the future. There's some really nice homes here. Folks have really invested in the homes here. So it's unlikely that this will redevelop. And so the idea of consolidating these pieces may not be reasonable. And that's something that we're going to have to think about. Next slide, please. Oh, let me say really quickly before we leave this. This will be an item that goes forward as a part of the recommendations with the Centerville recommendations that we're aiming to get to public hearing in late 2025. Right now, we're aiming for late summer or maybe early fall of 2025 before we take the entire recommendation to the board. Our goal is to continue to engage the immediate community around the property, have a discussion with them about this before making any future recommendation. And it's likely that we'll probably come back to you all in the future to talk about this and the broader Centerville study. Next slide. And I think I'm probably way over time. One more click.
You don't get presentations don't get time limits.
Okay.
I mean, obviously,
Next slide. I just want to orient you all to the work that's to come for the Centerville study. As I mentioned, the task force is currently working to help us quantify development potential for all of those focus areas that I showed you before. Hopefully, once that decision is made, our analysis will begin. That will take us through at least the early part, the winter of 2025 into the spring. Along with that, we're going to be developing additional plan guidance that may not rely on the quantification, right? We wanted to talk about park spaces. We wanted to talk about improving pedestrian connectivity. Those conversations are less reliant on the development potential. And so that's going to carry us into really through the spring of 2025. Our goal is for the task force to help us develop draft final recommendations by the I would say late spring, if we're good, maybe early summer. We'll hold another community meeting to get feedback on those recommendations and then allow the task force to make their final vote. And then again, expect a staff report publication towards the end of summer and then public hearings probably in the September timeframe. Just a couple more slides and then I'm out of your way. If you want to stay engaged, a quick way to do that, you can take a picture of the website. If you go to our website, one more click, Jonathan, there's a click there to get involved. You can sign up for notifications. So all of our task force meetings, you're welcome to attend. We started meeting virtually. I don't know, Henry, how long that's going to continue if the task force is still wants to do that. So if you're looking for something to do on a Wednesday night, plug in. The task force meets twice a month, second and fourth Wednesday, if you're interested. And last slide. There's my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Daniel, and we're happy to answer any questions. So.
All right, well,
Very nice.
we might have some questions right now. So thank you so much. I don't know if there's any board members who have any questions at the moment for Mr. Burton.
Appreciate, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And all those meetings you attended. I'm excited. I mean, I felt the same way about Centerville, so I'm excited.
I should really thank, I'm going to put Henry on the spot. He's one of our task force members. Is in the HOD, is it right, Henry, or just outside of, on the edge of it?
Best place to live.
We thank him. We thank him and the task force for all their time. We're kind of paid to do this, so they're volunteers.
So I was gonna say, I got a few thoughts. So I lived in Centerville for a while, on Trinity, in the Trinity area.
Nice.
So I love the idea that you're talking about trying to energize the space for the HODs, because I think this is one of our most strangled HODs because it's not actually appreciated because folks don't really realize they're there. We have some HODs you pass through and you don't realize it. We have other HODs that people are living in, like the homeowners of Holland Hills or Lake Ann. It's very obvious you're in a space like that. This one is, because of 29 and the situation at those intersections, that you showed a map showing it. There's Trinity, there's Old Centerville, and there's 20. That entire area precludes encouraging an individual to go there because traffic-wise, you must make decisions rapidly as you're navigating that space. And if you don't make them quickly, you don't get to your turn to get to your apartment complex on Trinity, or you don't get to the Trader Joe's because you have to get over quick enough or you're going to get destroyed by somebody.
We study that.
Who, so, I mean, not being on that task force, but I really hope there's some consideration as to how to bridge that space over there.
Absolutely. And specifically across from the HOD, the IHOP area that's immediately across the street, that's also one of the redevelopment opportunity areas. So we have a number of task force members that are thinking about how do you get across 29, right, to engage with some new development that's there. How do we connect these communities that are right now separated by all of the major roadways? So it's going to be a challenge. We do have a transportation analysis that's going to be a part.
I'm just thinking of, so I was myself and Samantha were on the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force. And that was, I mean, those topics came up, and then there's something you don't think about, like as someone who's in Reston right now, we have a new Wegmans, and there's now a constant stream of traffic crossing Reston Parkway, which is a massive busy road. To get to the new grocery store, there's no real easy way for a person to do that. And I think about when you showed that map, I'm like, there's really limited options for people to get to this space. Even you have a tenant, an individual using a historic property for a fantastic Korean bakery, and I encourage you to go to it. You know, I've got no stake in it, but that being said, it's, you know, if there were a conduit into that space, and I'm hoping that's something that staff working with the task force is something they can look at as opportunities for making that, you know, more transportation friendly and more pedestrian friendly. I mean, I know that you can't get rid of 29, you can't get rid of 28, they're staying, but you know, whatever we could do to allow more passage through there would be great.
I will just say, I was always very sorry the county acquired all the land in the center of Centerville for park, because I didn't think that it's really very useful for a park. Mount Gilead and the Sears House and all those related parcels. There was a plan to redevelop them at one point, which is incredibly controversial, incredibly ugly, back in the early 90s. And it wound up with the county buying all that land. And I've always thought that was sort of silly. That it's just not well used. It's just sitting there. And Mount Gilead is now the resident curator program, but you know, other than that, it's just most of that land just sits. And in the Spindle Sears House.
The center of Centerville is the donut hole, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, first, I thank you very much for coming and making a presentation to us. Revisions to the comp plan always make me nervous. And the poster child for that is the 2013 revisions to the comprehensive plan in Reston. And that cost us Isaac Newton Square. It's going to cost us Association Drive Circle, cost us the API building, and a number of other things at Reston, because people weren't paying attention to what was actually being contemplated. And so it's good to keep us informed. I'm very grateful for that. In the county guidance for making changes to the comprehensive plan, it talks about identifying potential heritage resources. So outside of the HOD, what potential heritage resources have you identified in the study area?
Hi, Denise Russell. I am the branch chief for the Heritage Resources branch in the planning division. And we are conducting a heritage resource study of the larger Centerville area, not just the core, but that whole outline that you saw. And that's Laura Kaviclis who's doing that. And she's just out on medical leave until the end of the year.
Okay, but was that information from that survey wasn't available to all the participants to date? Is that correct?
It is not complete.
Yeah, well, so that's where my worries come, is that they don't have all the data. You're developing the data according to the county's requirements, but people are making decisions about their future envisionment of how to use this space without having that data in front of them.
So that's coming forward in 2025. So that's a part of the quality.
Your timeline, you're pretty far down that timeline.
Unfortunately, as far as we are down the timeline, we've really just had a conversation about the existing conditions and asking folks to identify geographically the areas that they're interested in reviewing.
Okay.
Where we are now.
I'm just saying that because
You're asking a really good question. We have not just heritage resources, but this gets back to the transportation analysis that needs to occur as well. We work with multiple other agencies outside of DPD. And our goal is to topically bring those ideas forward, bring that feedback forward to the task force and ask them to review. So we'll have a meeting. It may be a couple of meetings where they review the feedback that the heritage resources groups brings forward, as well as others. Meetings to the.
Can we get a heritage resource presentation when that's done?
We will absolutely be
Okay.
bringing that to you.
As Laura's been involved in this since what, day one?
Yeah, yes, she has. And she's been to the task force once already.
Yep.
To get their impact, input and feedback prior to going out and doing the survey.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. Just one last comment. You mentioned improving walkability was one of the goals of all of this. I think VDOT will have an awful lot to say about that. It will be an extreme impediment to making this more readily walkable.
I think you're right. It's going to be a challenge. Again, especially for the major thoroughfares, they really do divide the community in a way.
It's like
it is. It is. The task force has thought about each of those. We thought about how each of the areas work together. They've also thought about how each of the areas sort of serve the quadrant of the community that they're in. We don't have a solution yet, but it is a talking point about how we might overcome.
You just put a big trail bridge in Reston.
I was going to
We
say,
hear the bridges. We hear bridges.
really an example of how to mitigate that. Go to Wheelie Avenue in Reston, right off the Dulles Flow Road.
Because the reason for that is it was dealing with a property. The board should have had more involvement in that conversation. But I will say from a pedestrian solution, that's one to think about. And having been on the Reston one, we saw how much that schedule slipped. I hope your schedule doesn't slip too as bad as ours did, but I also think about some of the postmodern and modern building survey efforts we're doing in the county. There are a few areas on Trinity almost make me think that there could, looking at the color ages of some of those buildings you were showing there, we again might have what folks may not perceive necessarily, but might very well be, modern architecture that, as John pointed out, when we did the 2013 update, those buildings were put to the wayside and there was not even a thought. And now we realize that now we've lost, truly, one of a kind structures designed by world-class architects. So that next stage of discussion is going to be really critical. Anyone here, we could always offer a board member too to go, if there's, I don't think we have any Centerville board members though. That was how easily we got the rest in one. So. Otherwise, yeah, Mr. Ali.
I love hearing from other departments.
Yes.
No, it just makes me feel Fairfax. Go team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for staying with us to this hour. We appreciate it.
Hopefully I didn't ramble too long, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our next presentation. It is the Dunn Loring School rezoning, RZ 2023 PR 00018. This is being presented to us by Fairfax County Public Schools. Trying to make sure. I think depending on who's all presenting for FCPS, there might need to be some introductions done.
Yeah, sorry. We'll advance as you request.
It's on the highway.
Right, floor is yours.
The next.
And if you would introduce yourself, just.
Sure, you bet.
Be general.
Thank you so much. My name is Tom Lee with Samaha Architects. I'm here today. We're supported with Scott Eschbach, the Director of Fairfax County Public Schools, Design and Construction, and John Mills, the Assistant Director of the same organization, and Dave Stigler with Panoni, who's a civil engineer, my project manager, Kyle Lee, and D.B. Combs, who's a senior manager for Fairfax County Public Schools Design and Construction as well. I appreciate, as you mentioned tonight, speaking you here this evening. If you can just go right to the next slide. We've done our introductions, and this is the for our entire team. And then we've had 6 meetings so far with committees and the community to discuss the project. And this is just a timeline for where we are. We're currently in a rezoning process and getting ready to start permitting, hopefully fairly soon, with the ultimate goal of opening a new school for the fall of 2028. The project scope here is to meet the Fairfax County educational specifications with the new elementary school on the site. Any use of the admin center, that staff will be relocated to another site and that facility will be removed. There'll be a new building that will not require any phase construction because there won't be any students on site at the time. There'll be a very limited footprint, have the full security enhancements. And we're also pursuing additional energy enhancements for the site, such as geothermal wells and photovoltaic on the roof and so on. It'll have all the necessary site configurations and separations and amenities to support the full Fairfax County educational specification. This is the existing site, and you can see the existing facility there that occupies the majority of the site towards Gallows Road. And then there's the existing Murphy Field, the soccer field, that is on an elevation about 10 feet higher in elevation than the remainder of the site. The existing building is built over a series of additions. It's about 42,000 square feet. It's fairly sprawling on the site and low. And some of the hurdles that we've looked at with that building, if you just want to go to the next slide. There was a significant slope across the site, so we couldn't retain this building for a number of reasons. One was that we needed ADA compliance both to the building and across the site itself. There's also many level changes within the building. There's no areas that are all large areas that would accommodate teaching spaces. We have partial basements. We have part of the building on crawl space. It's got all kinds of components to it that just break it up into so many little pieces. The other component of this is really when you come off of Greenbrier Way and you grade into the site to be allowed bus traffics for our school buses and so on, we can only go to a certain maximum grading to get onto that site. And to do that, the existing facility would be up in the air. So we're actually moving the grade down in this area. And if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see, after we had these community meetings and committee meetings, we presented several different design options. And the one that was widely appreciated and approved by all the community as far as what their interests were was this 4-story option that made the tightest footprint possible of all the options we presented and kept the building on the same side of the site as where the existing facility is, closest to Gallows, and then basically graded out the site around the building and then allowed a retaining wall across the back so that the building is somewhat benched into the site. You can see we retained the location of the existing Murphy Field. We have successfully separated the kiss and ride loop, which is the parent drop off that would come up around here, turn around and come back out the same way onto Idlewood. We have a separate bus loop that comes back out to the same entrance that is directly across from Greenbrier Way. And then in this view, you can tell that the loading dock is on this portion of the building, the service entrance. And that is somewhat screened from Gallows Road because it is at a lower elevation. So you would look across and you're basically looking at the second floor when you're on Gallows Road. You can see the photovoltaic array, as well as all of the modular playgrounds and outdoor classrooms and paved play, and then ADA access to the soccer field. You can go to the next slide. Just to kind of drill into some of the site access a little further, we do have a public shared use trail that goes all the way down Gallows and comes all the way down Idlewood as well to the length of the property. We have internal sidewalks that all meet the ADA components, access to all the doors on the site, as well as access to all of the play elements and outdoor teaching spaces. And then there's also connections we've done working with the planning to connect the sidewalks and improve some of the connectivity. We can go on to the next slide. This shows that kiss and ride loop. One of the real drivers of design was to try to make an extremely long kiss and ride loop for the drop off so that there's not any traffic backed up onto Idlewood Road. So here we're able to queue up approximately 50 cars to this point and then to turn around and came back out the same area. And the next slide is a similar description of showing how the bus loops work. So we can park 14 buses at the front in the chevron pattern and 2 basically ADA accessible buses that have to be on an even flatter area so they can disembark students in wheelchairs and so on. Slide. You can just kind of see a little closer up view of the building. One of the things we've done is we've selected a brick and we've had it to match the existing original construction of the facility that's on site currently. So it'll be the same matching brick. We have white mullions on all the windows in reference to that building as well as the precast would be matched that are functioning as sills and some decorative bands on this building. You can see here, this is the library on the second floor that frames a two-story entrance and also serves as a protective cover for some of the bus loading and unloading. There's windows that are all lined with, these are all classrooms across the front that all look out towards the residential side of Idlewood. And then there's more of a, these are the circulation stair on this side facing Gallows. Keep going to the next slide. Here's another view of that two-story entrance. We always like to make schools, really project to the students and the community the importance of education. So we try to make them welcoming and also kind of denote that the community is behind what they're doing there that day at schools and to make it an important element. So, when we're designing any building like this, we're really looking to meet absolutely every requirement of the Fairfax County Public Schools educational design specifications. So there's a number of things that we're accomplishing there, whether it be daylighting into every teaching space or multiple types of teaching stations within the school and access to play and kind of extracurricular activities. So if you can go on to the next slide. And this is where I mentioned that we're benching the site in. So we created this slide earlier to help with some of the community involvement so they could understand how the retaining wall worked, because I think when we were verbalizing it, I think some individuals were thinking that the building sat atop the retaining wall, but it's actually cut into the site. And the retaining wall also functions to eliminate some of the sound and function of hearing or seeing the kiss and ride loop in action, as well as if there were cars there at night, it would block headlights and so on into neighboring neighborhoods. To the next slide. These are just running through the floor plan. So in this 4-story solution, we have the ground floor all on the same level. So there's no interior ramps or stairs. Here's the main entrance off the bus loop as far as, and a secondary entrance. In red, this is the cafeteria, which functions as a controlled release to the kiss and ride loop pretty well. And we have the gymnasium adjacent to that with a stage space in between. In the peach color on the corner is the school age childcare. And then the purple spaces are pre-K and special education. Up front in green, we have the administrative areas so that they provide passive visual security to the comings and goings of the school, including the secure vestibule check-in off the main entrance. And in blue here is the music department. Go to the next slide. As we move up the building, you can see we start to have typical general education classrooms on this floor, which would mostly be kindergarten and first grade, as well as the purple spaces for pre-K, or the purple spaces for special ed, and then the other 2 yellow spaces for resource rooms. You'll notice the media center is on the second floor and kind of the center of the school, as well as on the backside, that's the 2-story volume of the gym coming up through the space. You move up another floor. You can see that while this is a 4-story building, a lot of the roof elevations start to drop off as you move up. So it's not 4 stories for the entire footprint. It's just a 4 stories for this portion of the building. And you can see additional classrooms, an art department, and then there's, itinerant offices, counselor spaces. We try to spread a lot of the teachers and staff out around the school, again, so that there's like a passive security presence in all the corridors. To the top floor. This is mostly classroom spaces and, support spaces for teachers and resource spaces as well. Move to the next slide. One of the things I'd like to just talk about tonight, and something we'd really like to get some, is through a generalized development plan, we've committed to certain proffers, and some of those are historical documentation. We're in the process of performing a phase 1 architectural survey. And if it is determined necessary through that phase 1, we may perform a phase 2 intensive level documentation, including photographic documentation to meet the building survey standards of the Historic American Building Service Standards. We have our submission to the Heritage Resources Branch that'll be upcoming, and a submission to the Virginia Room of the Fairfax County Public Library. And then all of the photography must meet the security of the interiors qualification standards. Next slide. One of the things that we've planned in the proffer is to provide an interpretive historical exhibit, and historic marker. This is just an example from Polytechnic High School up in Baltimore. So it would be an interpretive exhibit. It would show the history of the site, and it may have elements of timelines and notable community members that participated in the existing site to recognize it being on the inventory of historic sites. And then this location would be coordinated with the History Commission, and we may also, I think in this case, we've proffered that we'll have interpretive wayside markers and maybe a county marker even on the site. Slide. I think this shows you some of the places we were thinking about off of that main lobby in a prominent location. We have a large blank wall that we've left here for the potential of adding this type of display, as well as some display cases across from the main monumental stair going up to the upper floors. The next slide. We have a plaque that is in the existing building that has been committed to being conveyed to the Virginia Room of the Fairfax County Library System. This is that Public Works Administration plaque. And that could be, originally we're thinking we could have kept that at the school, one of those displays, but I think at this point it's been committed to the Virginia Room. The next slide, please. Is that we are going to be planning on salvaging, and it's written in the proffer, a minimum of 50 bricks of the existing oldest portion of the facility that we're going to incorporate into some kind of historic display or marker or benches or something on site that can be essentially an ancillary structure to the building. I believe with that, last, we were really just looking for your input, specifically as we create these interpretive displays and markers and location of things. We do have EHT Traceries, who's working with us on the historic interpretive signage, as well as the phase 1 survey at this time. So that I'd like to just open it up to your comments. I
just have a question. This is a new elementary school to relieve crowding from other elementary schools. It's not a relocation.
It's a capacity.
Okay. And it's been administration offices for a long
So the original school was
I know when the school closed. I'm just wondering how long has it been administrative offices?
When did it start being admin is a good question. I know the school closed in 78.
Okay, I was thinking about 30 years, but okay.
Yeah, but I think the administrator, I think for a while it played various kind of rented out types facilities like in the community. But then after that, I think the administrative center's been there for probably at least 10 or 15 years. I can't remember a time it hasn't been an admin center.
And between Fairfax schools leased it to the Islamic Academy. It was there before they built their academy, and then it was vacant again, and then used it for administrative space.
I have some thoughts, but I'll let my board members, I'm sure everyone has thoughts.
I was gonna say, I've spoken a lot about this already in writing, so, and at the commission meeting, I wanted to give the other boards a chance, the members to speak. I think the important thing to highlight is just to point out, though, the timeline that was presented, that since 2022, this project has been in front, there's been engagement with Heritage to come talk to us. However, and I'm going to summarize it rather succinctly, because it's not a requirement to talk to the ARB when you're not in an HOD. That was one of the decisions that was made, was to not come approach us on this, because given the fact that they weren't reusing the building, what was the purpose in coming to us? Now, I think my tone says enough about how I feel about that. But I think the other thing is to keep in mind that the design is set as is. So that's the other limiting factor that's been placed on us. So just keep those factors in mind. Ms. Murray.
I just want to say that I'm a member of the History Commission. I've been watching this since December of 2020, and they voted to quote repurpose the building. And so my opinions of the History Commission and my colleagues are on the record, so I will not go into that tonight either. We very much object to the cavalier demolition of the building. Period.
I empathize, like, you're between a rock and a hard place, right? Like, I've been on these, it's not even an adaptive reuse because it's a school to a school. But before you even presented, I knew it would be a big challenge to bring this school up to ADA requirements, which are only like 30 years old, the ADA law, which is its own tragedy. And then all the technological and the Wi-Fi, like, so I knew kind of before you started talking that even if you had really, really tried, probably the site could not become a useful, you know, the grade A, what Fairfax wants for elementary schools. And so, yeah, it stinks that it's getting torn down. I don't see any relationship between the current design and the design of the old building. I don't know if that's even necessary. Like, to me, that seems like, why? I mean, everything in Virginia is brick. So anyway, I don't think you need to save 50 bricks. It seems like not an important gesture. I do like the idea of a display, either, you know, maybe in the lobby and also somewhere else. I've seen some awesome photographs related to this site. So it seems like you have a wealth of resources to create a display. Yeah, so.
I do appreciate those comments, and it is true that it was really the physical limitations of the existing facility. When you looked at it being about a 42,000 square foot facility over like 6 or 7 additions and all in different little pieces and kind of ways, it was just, it wouldn't have been possible to build a school utilizing that facility. I think it would have sunk the project as being a school.
And it would have been great if there was more land. Could have put the school somewhere else and kept this building. For administration buildings don't have nearly as many restraints. But again, there's no land.
It's also true that, to your point, once we knew we had to remove the building, then we were looking at, well, how do we make this a school that is equivalent to all the other schools in the county? And the real push that we felt from the community was, let's tighten that footprint as much as possible so we can keep as much green space as possible, so we can have play amenities for kids, so that we can have safe access to the school, separate vehicular and pedestrian traffic, separate, you know, parking from where students are moving around. It was all really getting into school design mode. How do we make this commensurate with the excellence of the education that we have in this?
Yeah, and I have no critique on the design. I mean, but from a historian standpoint, the importance of this building and a national dialogue of what happened with the public works, and it's a lovely building. It's intact. It retains sense of place, integrity. I mean, all the things that us historians look for. The building checks all the boxes, but you know, you can't save every building. I don't know. Anybody else have anything to add?
Mr. Burns, then Mr. Zeldin, and then Mr. Plumpy do. So,
Oh, yeah, to a certain extent, I think you're the wrong person to be addressing us.
Yeah.
You're talking to us about the new school and how it meets all the current county needs for education of young children. And I agree with you that the mitigation efforts are kind of pathetic. 50 bricks, and we're going to take the plaque and we're going to put it someplace where no one will ever see it again. That's lip service. It doesn't do a whole lot. I'm far more concerned with what this project represents of the school system's cavalier attitude. I think somebody used that word already. I should use a different word. They're rather indifference to their own physical plant of all of their buildings. The education is a significant part of the history of this county. And particularly, this was earlier building, but particularly the boom that came in the post-war, all of those buildings have kind of come of age historically. And I don't see any effort by the school system to address the fact that they might consider some of those buildings potential heritage resources. Attention, Denise. They're simply not doing that. They're ignoring the potential for celebrating the history of education in the county. And here was an opportunity to maybe just incorporate the original Franklin Roosevelt part. Don't worry about the, 35,000 square feet. That was all addition. That was accretion and not really thought out all that carefully. But maybe that could have been introduced in that. We're not hearing any of that in your presentation. I don't know that anybody even considered that.
We actually did do studies to see if we could keep even the front facade or a portion of the facade, but it's, by the time you try to get vehicular traffic into that space to meet the current requirements for both VDOT entrances and the school system's requirements for safety and security and circulation, the facade would be, 15 feet up in the air from where it is now. It would have to be up on like a podium almost, and then we would have to fill the back of it somehow. And it just got to the point where its location on the site also would have precluded us from being able to build on that part of the site, which meant we would have lost the soccer field.
Okay. And I understand that,
Widening also has kind of played into this multimodal plan for Gallows Road. Somewhat has a fairly deep setback to this site, so we have to meet that as well. So to be in comprehensive plan compliance, it's a lot of factors kind of boxing us in. I guess
so. What I would have liked to have heard tonight from you or someone else from the school system is what the county school system is doing to address its built heritage. These are the buildings we have in inventory. These are the ones from this era. These are the ones from that era. These are the best of them. Is this the last remaining WPA era school building in Fairfax County?
I don't believe so. I think they're
okay. Where are the others, and what are you doing about protecting them if this one had to be sacrificed?
Yeah.
I mean, when you make choices like this, and take something out, you have to step back and take a look and say, okay, how else can we preserve this legacy? The WPA had a big impact in Fairfax County because they built X number of schools here. How many are left? What can we do to preserve that part of our heritage as educators? And then move on to the post-war stuff. It's not rocket science. Somebody in their public works department can probably.
John, I think you're speaking to two gentlemen over here, actually.
What two gentlemen?
These two gentlemen over here are actually with Fairfax County Public Schools.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't you guys?
This gentleman.
I'd be happy, Mr. Burns. Certainly. I do appreciate all of your comments, and I appreciate your understanding relative to the constraints relative to this particular project. And as with anything, each project has to be taken on its own merits and what we're able to do. And I don't know if, I wouldn't like to say that we're cavalier in the throwing away. I know that that's okay.
Please remind us.
That's okay. I'm sorry, I'm Scott Eschbach, and I'm the Director of Design and Construction for Fairfax County Public Schools. If you've visited, or I invite you to visit the Louise Archer Elementary School in Vienna, which just opened up a few months ago, which really celebrates the history of that. We've even as we were pulling the brick off that's in part of the main entrance, we discovered this wonderful, wood-clad siding that was original to the building, which we then were able to restore, repair. It's amazing what kind of shape it was in, actually. And really celebrate that along with murals of, the Louise Archer story. So I don't like to think that we are callously denigrating the history of our inventory. And I am relatively new to the school system. So my whole thing is about developing relationships. It's a heck of a lot easier to do. What we do is hard from your side, from our side. And it's a heck of a lot easier and more successful if you can form those relationships and kind of go through together. And what we're learning right now is that while it wasn't a requirement to come to this board, that it was maybe a mistake not to. And we're learning from that. And I think that we're inviting further conversation in projects as they come forward, even before maybe we even have the architect of, we're looking at this school, we're looking at this site. I'd like to get your thoughts. Is there something we're not thinking about that you may already kind of have in the back of your mind of, I remember a story about that, kind of thing that you may want to consider. And I know you think maybe it's late in the evening, and it's been a long day, and I don't know how you're feeling about what I'm saying, but I am about, kind of forming relationships. And I think our school system does want to do the right thing, do those things, are they at odds sometimes? Certainly. Like I said, what we do is really hard from your side and our side. But I would like to, I did want to point out that I don't think that we want to be viewed as the ogre that's just trampling on our school inventory and our heritage. We are bound to create that first-class, world-class educational environment. And sometimes you can incorporate it, and sometimes, as you were saying, you can't save every building kind of thing. So that's kind of how I wanted to address your comments, Mr.
You may be doing good things in the school system, but if you're doing good things and nobody knows about them, we assume they're not being done. So very simple thing might be just say, history of Fairfax County Public Schools in your website. These are the properties that we have that we're most proud of because this represents this part of our educational
Interesting
over the past 75 years, or whatever time period you want to pick.
Excuse me.
But put that out there so people know that when you tear down one school that's raised a lot of emotional issues, that's only one of other schools that you guys are stewards for.
Right. I think we've got 220 something buildings worth of.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
and that's hard.
It is.
That's hard. But
how do you eat an elephant?
You're struggling with that. We have to struggle. We have to provide this. We have this footprint, and these are the things that we're doing, and these are the things that we can't do because we're constrained by site or other issues. But get that stuff out there for people to see, and then you won't run into these buzzsaws.
I appreciate that comment. I really do.
Yeah. And sir, I appreciate what you said. The chairman and I, through the supervisor's office, got to meet with legal counsel and with some folks from the school. I don't remember if you were on that call or not. I honestly don't.
I'm relatively new to the system.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I think the chairman was more vocal in that meeting than I was, but I didn't disagree with him. I think the cavalier attitude came, or the reason for that comment was, it was made very clear to us that we weren't a requirement, so we weren't coming to you. But it wasn't like personal to us. It was anyone that wasn't a requirement, we weren't coming to. And to me, that just speaks to, we're not really concerned about what people have to say. We're trying to push this project through. And I appreciate what you have said tonight. I may be the incoming chairman, and I would love to work together to foster that relationship, because what we said, and I think there was some appreciation and maybe some ignorance, that while it's not a requirement to come to us, you have a board of people here from a variety of backgrounds that have a lot of different information.
That's what I'm saying.
It could be of assistance, and we weren't utilized.
And I think that's been our internal conversation of maybe we stepped on it a little bit here. And if we've got a plethora of knowledge base, that would be helpful.
And look, I understand you're trying to get something done. I get it. And the fewer hurdles that are in the way, I get it. But I think what we tried to communicate in our meeting too is we're never trying to get to know for somebody when we hear projects and stuff. It's never about rejecting it or trying to find a way not to do something. It's about providing feedback and information that can make it as good as it can be. And that's what we're trying to do.
If I can just go back to the number 50, it drives me bananas, but it's a minimum of 50. And I don't even know how that buffer arrived at, but we do want to look at salvaging, whatever it takes.
It's a recreation as part of the preservation.
Yeah, I mean, it says minimum of 50 bricks, and you just zero in on the 50 and it goes, that's about a panel about like this.
Yeah, all right.
So I understand that, and every time I read that proffer, it's like, okay, that we do want to do something significant, whether it's internal and integrated into that interpretive display as part of that framework for that, or whether it's, exterior site walls for seating or, however that come with signage that,
Could have taken
about
the
it.
entire-
You could rebuild a wall inside the, anyway.
Yeah, there's a ton.
taken the entire front entrance and just put it on your display wall.
You stole my thunder.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try to let Mr. Pompey, Mr. Pompey's been waiting very patiently.
That's fine. No,
You didn't hear me say that.
I didn't hear it at all. But a couple things. Yeah, I understand your issues, both you guys, all that stuff. And, I don't have kids, so, but I do employ people who do have them and they need to go to school. So. So let's say it's gonna be good school, but start from a design standpoint. I'm gonna start with the new design and go back to the old design. So the stormwater management was not talked about on the site. Is it all underground? Or you make it something kind of unique? This, I know there's a civil engineer behind me that's gonna maybe talk about that, or maybe just say, hey, we're gonna do some cool things, because I'm a landscape architect. Also the green, you have a lot of roofs there. Can you put green roofs on all the roofs instead of looking at the PTO stuff?
We're maximizing the roof.
Yeah, but go beyond it. That's what they sold. Look at those, look at those ugly roofs. That's one thing.
Joe, this design's 100%. There is no change.
Are you serious?
This design is 100%.
Well,
There is no
okay.
change.
There's so many.
Interior wise, I was disturbed because you look at the ceiling tiles, 5 ceiling tile is about 50 square feet of brick. Excuse me, 50 bricks, it's about 5 ceiling tiles. Not very much, right? So and I was thought that's deplorable. So it's basically, 85 square feet or something like that.
I would say that's more than 50 bricks, 5 times.
Okay, well,
But that's what I'm saying. I hate the number 50 and
I know. Well, I did
submit that.
listening to this presentation, Mr. Burns said exactly what I was gonna say. Is you got that long, you said you big wall. Do a facade, not a facade, but just take it, rebuild it. It may take 5,000 bricks. I don't know how much it was gonna take, but just use that wall instead of just having regular old drywall in there. Clad it with brick, replicate the facade, whatever architectural treatments that would be, and talk about it and put that plaque back in. I think it's hideous that it's going to Fairfax County Library that no one wants to see. I think this public works plaque. Yeah, I think it's very important to stay here and let's make a celebration of the thing, not a token. I don't want to see bench legs made out of brick or something like that, dude. Who could care less? Celebrate the brick, because celebrate the building by using the brick and the other elements on the outside. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other?
I know I started, but I think what we're feeling is a lot how we felt when Fairfax Parks came with us with the emergency demolition of that outbuilding.
Yeah.
We felt blindsided and we went to Parks and we said, well, what do you have? What condition is everything in? Like, we need to know. And I feel that way about the schools. Like, it's as simple as doing a search on your inventory by date construction and trying to figure out, well, what do we have? What year was it constructed? Do a site visit. Is it highly altered? Is it pristine? Is it covered in additions? And just get some sense of what you have and then give it a hierarchy. And then if you come to us and you can be like, this was rated a D, it has all these additions, and then we're like, oh, we can quantify that so easily in context with your entire inventory. And then we feel comfortable about the decisions you made. Oh, we have 30 more like this, and this is the worst one, or this is the only one we have. Like, let's not do anything to this one. And that's what preservationists do all the time. And I think part of the problem is that the built environment in Fairfax is coming of age, where suddenly things that were not important to I'm not trying to be ageist, but like maybe a 70-year-old that grew up here, oh, that's just my school. This next generation is saying, oh, this school is really culturally important to me and it has new importance that now I want to preserve it. And I think Fairfax schools and Fairfax just needs to adapt to that. So if we seem reactionary, like I think moving forward, like if you could get a sense of what you have in your inventory.
That's what I agree with you. And that's what I'm saying. I think even before we hire an architect and, we have a renovation, we'll say a renovation.
Yeah.
We do very little brand new building.
Sure, it's expensive.
In this. So as we work our way through the queue, that seems to set let's say the priority for what do we got? What's coming up? Who do we talk to? How do we, define what we have,
Yeah.
Samantha, you,
We're not historians, obviously, so we need to kind of.
No, but you have, the county has
So, as
resources.
resource.
Yeah.
Right.
It can be as quick as like no, I'm trying to put more work on your table. We trained historians, like they can very quickly assess, what the
What do we have?
significance is. Exactly.
Is it that we have?
Don't belabor it yourself. Reach out to the other county.
Oh, 100%.
Samantha, and then Ms. Mangum.
Just wanna. I just say if it's happened to be only 50 brick reserved, then it's go down to part of the history. Then it's go down to part of the history. There we go. The other thing I was trying to puzzle is my understanding when you the project queue and everything, the program of the project already set, right?
Partially. That's partially true. When we hire the architect, we'll have kind of a summary of spaces, but dependent on what programs may be coming into that school, kind of starts to, that picture starts to solidify a little bit more design, and even as you get closer to the end as to what actual programs we can support there.
There's always revisions to the ed spec through time, like, so pre-K has been growing in the county, for instance, or the SAC program. And a lot of these start with looking at multiple sites. And I think one of the hurdles Fairfax County Schools has really been running into is acquiring land. And so like if they're not able to build in multiple places where they can't acquire or can condemn land, then they look to sites that they own. And it's kind of like maybe their only opportunity to build because they really have a land acquisition hurdle to be met.
Again, feasibility study happened before it goes down to design and the construction branch.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question in terms of when does the feasibility study?
Like now what we heard is there is no other way but to take the existing building totally, build a brand new on this site.
On this particular site, on this, right.
Right.
Unless
sounds like
the new building was placed down on the field, which had its own constraints and was
but sounds
very
like
much opposed by the.
You were given this problem to solve. You don't have other choice. But who in Fairfax Public School that can make a decision of, let's say, this school should be reserved and put in different program to make it happen different?
Well, that's what, I think that's what we had in place was it functioning as an administrative facility. But when it comes down to capacity enhancement for the region, and we have to build it, we've got to get a school on board to help relieve some of the overcrowding in the overall region, not maybe just necessarily in that neighborhood, but in the overall region. As you're probably aware, there's a comprehensive boundary readjustment going on right now, which is going to shift a lot of things to help populate underutilized areas and to give relief to and this is part of that, creating relief for overcrowded schools. So this is a new school that we need to get more capacity within the region. And because we own that, like he's saying, because we own that piece of property, it's kind of starting to push us into a certain direction.
That resolution.
I would like to see it's more.
Rachel wants to.
Yeah, I was going back to the discussion on what you, Mr. Burns and Ms. Hammock were discussing earlier in terms of the proffers. So if you want to continue on this line.
Oh, no.
Could you go back to the slide of the proffers? I know we focused on the 50 bricks, but I was like, there were other things there. And it was, if this, that's
studies.
Yes. I guess I just wanted to understand, are you suggesting that perhaps something like a inventory of schools and then a hierarchy delineation or basically a context study. Is that a more valuable proper or mitigation measure here than some of these other measures that they're proposing? And so
think so.
is that something we want to, I don't know how we,
You don't have any authority to do that.
no, just.
We can absolutely say the proffers are inadequate.
Say we definitely want to keep what's on the list, and we need to find out who gets to decide whether it needs just a phase one study or not. And add what you're talking about, because I've been thinking about that, in fact, county-wide. An inventory of the county's buildings, starting with the schools, how old they are. I went to an elementary school that was built in 1965. It may be significant now. There's a lot of them. And there's Wolf Trap that was elementary school was built in 67 with its environmentally correct features. There's a lot out there. And I think the county needs to get a handle on it, starting with the school system. You've got Jeff Clark, who has done a lot of research on the school system. So I think you've got most of the information already there.
No, I've never met him.
How, what's your relationship with Janet?
With Janice?
Janice, yes.
Janice is my boss's boss. She's the chief of the facilities division.
Thank you. I asked that because I participated in a meeting with Janice and Carl Frisch and I guess DB Combs.
DB is right behind you. Yep.
Oh, you're DB. Okay. Sorry. I did a tour with you this summer, and we were made certain promises that there are three of the history commission there. We were made certain promises about what things would happen, what would happen in the future. And so I've been thinking about this thing for a long time. I will state my biggest objection is why did you keep calling it repurposing after you decide to demolish the building?
I'm sorry, could you restate?
The decision to demolish was made very early. Yeah, you kept calling it a repurposing. You're repurposing the dirt, not the building.
Sometimes oddly, project titles stick because they go through bond referendums where they're voted on.
It didn't go through a bond referendum.
Yeah, but just in the county in general, like I've seen projects stick with names that become less representative over time for that.
Anyway, but I think, yes, I think you're right.
Well, I just wanted to, it was basically to say, is there anything here, knowing that all of this is going to cost time and money, and both things are limited, is the idea of a historic context study of greater value given what has just happened than one or some of the activities posted here? Because this seems like we're making these good suggestions for this to get done, but if it's not directly tied to perhaps a proffer or mitigation measure from one project, the likelihood of getting done seems less. So if this is something as a board that we think is a priority, I just wanted, there may have to be a trade-off, and that's what I was getting to.
I think because this still hasn't gone through the planning commission yet, and they still had extreme concerns about this, that we shouldn't be attempting to compromise in this situation. And I'm going to take my moment to speak on this too, in the sense that you said, and I think it's frustrating to me, one, you're the architect, so thank you for designing it. I appreciate that. You've been put here to come talk to us. I feel unfortunate for you because there are decision makers well above you who made these decisions, not you. And so this reflects Fairfax County Public Schools, not most, I would say, the people in the room who are doing the tasks of others who have made decisions, who are not enduring being here at 10 o'clock at night to actually listen to us, be upset about it, even though you probably had very limited role in actually making us upset. But I am definitely upset. And I know my other colleagues are understanding. I'm not understanding at this point. We said we did studies. You never talked to us about these studies. We have amazing architects on this board. We have amazing landscape architect. We have amazing archaeologists, historians, architectural historians, all people that could have provided insight to Fairfax County Public Schools' approach to this project. And maybe would have come to the same conclusion that this would have been the ultimate decision, that the school has to be demolished and we have to build new. But, and I am a spouse of a Fairfax County Public School teacher, the school wasn't doing homework. This Fam County doesn't do its own homework. My wife tells her kids to do their homework. The school system doesn't do its homework to go, who should we talk to? Oh, well, it's only an option to talk to this board. I could do the extra study to make sure I'm ready for the test. Instead, I don't. And you get this really grouchy guy who shows up to a bunch of meetings, writes some really nasty letters, shows up at the planning commission and says, no, you should didn't vote to deny this. And I still don't think this is where it needs to be. I think the proffers are absolutely inadequate. They are perfectly fine for what was proposed in the preservation plan, as Heritage would have suggested. Denise, Daniel, Laura, they did their job to say these are the bare minimum requirements that have to come here. But we're now in extra credit territory here now. We're really talking about how can we make things right. And I think Ms. Mangum pointed to a really awesome idea. We don't have a good understanding of the schools. My son goes to Terraset, which is an amazing architectural landmark in my mind. I talk to him all the time about that school had solar fields on top of it donated from the Middle East. A whole concept that I think he has little to no idea about because interpretation is in a wall plaque in the administrative space. And the last place you want to be as a kid is in the administrative space. Unless you're going to the nurse because you get to go home. But that's not there. That's, you know, that's lost. So that knowledge base about the county is severely missing. And so in my mind, the planning commission, the boards that actually get their computers, get their full Wi-Fi access, they need to take up the mantle because there were several members of the planning commission that were also affronted, that no one came to talk to us. When they redeveloped Mount Vernon High School, and they turned it into a new space. And while it wasn't no longer going to be Fairfax County Public Schools, they came to us and asked us for ideas about that project. Okay. We shared our input, and I think that is a masterful project that's come out of that. Yeah. Also, I was on the Exceptional Design Awards for this board representing us, and we gave multiple Fairfax County Public Schools awards of both honor and honorable mention, highlighting new additions and other things done to the school. So the county can do fantastic design. Fairfax County Public Schools can do great things. They did bare minimum standard work here. I guess, you know, C's get degrees or something to that effect is the old adage, and that's what's happening here. I think ethnography needs to be a factor of the proffers now. There's a whole history associated with school, starting with the freed individuals who were required to give up their land for the public works project, for the use as a school. There's a whole community surrounding this space whose I don't feel like their voice was actually conveyed. And when I attended the planning commission meeting, there were plenty of members of the public who did not seem very excited about this project. And so that might be another way to energize them into this conversation, is involving the community in some type of mitigation, perhaps is the word some folks would use, but some type of proffer that really involves them in how we interpret this space. Mr. Pulpy had a fantastic idea. Let's do a facadectomy and take that facade out and put it in there, highlight that historic facade with that amazing doorway and all those details. That's something that kids could really get excited behind and seeing, not a very bland, flat wall space to interpret. And I also think the ARB should be part of that interpretive design group, not just the History Commission. All respect to them and what they do. I think we need to have a hand in it too, because clearly we're being neglected by not having our voice in that same arena. Beyond that, you have all these retaining walls surrounding the backside of the building. Amazing space to interpret something on. Why can't we use that for a space to interpret or convey some type of message or education?
We did consider that. We have considered that extensively. It's the maintenance and prevention of tagging and defacing of it that kind of creates.
I mean, you construct a 50 brick bench, it's going to get defamed and tagged too. I mean, I
project images.
Yeah. I also see an opportunity we could do a community archaeology day here. If you're going to decimate this site and dig it down, we could do a really amazing archaeology opportunity here too. The site has had a lot of history occur at it. We could totally engage the rest of the county's heritage branch to say, what else can we do? And this could be opportunities that the county could rely on that don't necessarily go to, oh, we have to spend thousands more dollars. Let's start using the branches and resources that Ms. Hammock and Mr. Burns were talking about. How can we celebrate a new school, but also recognize the history of that existing school? And in my mind at this point, I don't think this board should be in any way entertaining that this is an acceptable level of proffers. And we should be directing potentially, I guess, our new chair to convey to the planning commission that they should revise the proffers and that they should be more extensive. And perhaps part of that could be a countywide survey of schools to help us identify these places so that we're not in this confrontational environment. Because as Mr. Zellman said, and he was the more reasonable person in our meeting, I always like to say we want to get to yes. We don't want a homeowner. We don't want a citizen in this county to show up and go, this board told me no, because I didn't have a $1 million architect design my project. And so I had to slap things together and I'm going to be turned away. We want to find a way to get to a yes for that citizen, but we also want to find a way to get to a yes to the expensive project that does have all the funding behind it. But we can't do that if the conversation happens days before you go to the planning commission at 10 o'clock at night, right before Christmas. This is this is quintessentially, and they're sending folks, no offense, they're sending someone who's, hey, I'm new. I'm like, no, I want someone who's absolutely going to be absolutely frustrated I'm talking to them in this way and deserves it. Not somebody who's like, hey, you got to go talk to the ARB. You're like, okay, sure. And now we're all grouchy at you. I'm not grouchy at you. Everyone here is doing their job.
I completely understand.
Well,
I completely understand that and can understand how and why you feel the way you do. Please, that's not said flippantly. And as I said, it's kind of we'll say a lessons learned of, moving forward, even even before we hire Tom, that we're meeting with, we've got this school that is coming up and it's next on the thing. What do you guys know about it? Or what, help us kind of figure out the story so that when we're hiring Tom, the story's already there and it's part of almost right from concept.
We want Tom, when there's a chance for that dialogue, when there's a chance to have a charrette with Tom, so that we're sharing ideas, that you're seeing the expertise that I have around me and on this board. Have you thought about this concept? You thought about that concept? But instead, we're in a position where the school is going. And even though we may all come to that conclusion, we had to come to the conclusion in a very unprofessional and unpleasant way. That's the darn problem here.
I understand. If I could piggyback on a couple of the comments too. I've worked with Fairfax County Public Schools for a very long time. Our firm's been around long enough that we're renovating and removing our own buildings that we designed for you. Right? So I started working with Fairfax Schools back in 1987. So I've personally probably done 30 some schools in the county. I have definitely seen an increase in their involvement in the community. I've seen them providing more community meetings, getting more feedback. Their websites have started to create those historic sites for each school, talking about the history of each school. If you spend some time on their website, you can see a lot of that information. It's a great place to mine things. I think in this job in particular, we were coming out of the pandemic when we were doing the planning and we were watching construction costs skyrocket. Every year we were every time you turned in a cost estimate, it was escalating a significant amount because the construction industry was just on fire. And I think there was a real press to try to keep schedules and move things on. And I appreciate wanting to get everyone involved. And I think they've really made that leap by more and more community involvement and more connectivity to those people. And I think that'll naturally grow into being more committee groups and more specialists and more groups like in the ARB. But I've certainly seen that myself in the last 5 years where it's starting to, be more and more integrated with groups like this. So if that's of any.
I mean, it's encouraging. It's unfortunate that it has to come out of the crucible of what we're dealing with, though.
Final, just related back to the context though, like as knowledgeable as this board is, we have not enough information about the inventory as a whole that we wouldn't be able to make decisions about, well, okay, there's an identical one like this in this part of the county. So if you save that one, then you're good to remove this one. We wouldn't have that information. I don't think, nobody has that.
I don't think any of them are.
Well, or
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
extent and used in some way.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's.
This one was the closest to a school. The last one was the closest to a school.
And I think Fairfax Schools has the information on each school. I think what they're not having right now is maybe doing the comparative analysis.
Yes.
That's the information.
They're not saying like this, because they have on their websites information about like all the history of these schools. It's a matter, they're not saying like this school is more important than that school.
And that I think is the type of analysis we're saying will help guide your decision-making on what actions to take for which locations possibly. But that is a critical piece of we don't have that. And it sounds like nobody is making decisions from a vantage point like that. So I think that would be very helpful.
Are there any other comments? I appreciate, again, I really do, as you said to me, I genuinely appreciate you all coming. I know it took a long time to make that happen, and staying as late as you did to come to that presentation. I really do. And hearing us out, particularly me, I'm a little grouchy, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Again, like I said, my career, I mean, before I came to Fairfax County Public Schools, I am a school architect for 30 years, doing schools in the whole region. And to me, what we do together is really cool in how we serve our community, our kids and everything. And it's made that much more enjoyable when you develop strong relationships. And those relationships get you through the rocky moments like this, because as you said, not every school might be a candidate or for us to be able to repurpose first. But if we have a strong relationship and a foundation, we can have probably a better conversation about it. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Hope we can do that. Hopefully under our new chair's tutelage.
You've said that like 5 times today.
All right, if there are no other comments. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us out of presentations and into board and staff items.
Midnight.
That's not midnight yet. So I would entertain a motion to pay the recording secretary and approve the November 14th minute, November 14, 2024 minutes. Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve the November 14, 2024 meeting minutes and pay the clerk Ryan Johnson.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky and Ms. Orr. Oh, you can both second, I found out. That's technically legal. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Have a good holiday.
Mr. Burns abstaining because he was not present. He was having a great time. Montreal? All right, that takes us out of that. Treasurer's report, Daniel?
How much money we got?
I don't got that on my stuff.
I did not get a statement this month.
Oh,
I will.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I love the Mr.
I believe that Elise did your reimbursement process.
Paid.
Yeah.
It's down by that much plus the clerk being paid.
Okay.
Then I'll be submitting Mr. Burns's reimbursement request that was approved. I think that was in October. September.
The chair will sign it, I'm sure.
Yes.
Which chair?
I don't know. Whoever that is.
Should need a chair, sign.
Should I bring him a
You
receipt?
should need to sign. You should be able to, Daniel should just send your motion.
There's another form that the chair has to.
There's another form I have to sign,
Okay.
or had to. We'll see.
Oh my God.
Some problems.
Don't I?
It'll be within the next week, so it'll still be.
Oh, will, okay. Yeah, it doesn't, oh, darn it.
Sorry.
Lame duck session. Oh, you should see the letters all right then. Okay.
People you'll pardon.
All right. Administrative. That takes us on to officer elections. So we have a whole little handout right here. We have our nominating committee, which was composed of Mr. Flinsky and Ms. Swan. So first on the agenda is I'm announcing the opening for nominations of the 2025 slate of officers. And so I would first turn to the nominating committee to report out.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, the nominating committee submits the following nominations: Jason Zellman for chairperson, Christopher Daniel for vice chairperson, and Rachel Mangum for treasurer.
Great. Thank you. Nominating committee nominates Jason Zellman for chairperson, Christopher Daniel for vice chair, Rachel Mangum for treasurer. Nominations that are open on the floor. Are there any further nominations for chair? Any further nominations for chairperson? Anyone want to nominate anybody? All right, not hearing any. Nominations for chairperson are closed. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Not hearing any. Those nominations are closed. Are there any further nominations for treasurer? Not hearing any. Those are closed. All right. We have two options by voice vote or comprehensive motion to approve the slate of officers. So someone has to make that motion. I cannot make that motion. We have a uncontested slate of officers, so no speeches are needed. So if I was hoping someone would put someone up there, but
I had a really good one too.
oh,
You have one prepared?
Oh, yeah. Spent a long time on it.
so but I need someone to make that motion with those assignments. And Miss Hammack.
Motion for a comprehensive motion to approve slate of officers.
You need to be more detailed, Daniel, or is that good enough?
I think it's represented in the minutes.
Okay,
We're good.
perfect. All right. We have a motion. Is there a second for that?
This order.
Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor?
Congratulations.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Jason doesn't face this thing.
All right, the motion carries. Congratulations to Chair Zellman. It'd be a long reign. Yeah, 4 years.
Is it 4 years or?
Yeah, that's as long as you can be.
Well, it's
chair.
1 year at a time.
1 year at a time.
1 year up to 4.
So you're kicking me out.
Unless you're blue.
Max.
Like, can you be chair again after 5?
Yes, John has been chair more than once.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that's the scheme here.
This. All right, discussion and updates and reports. I see none. Correspondence, announcements, Heritage Resource Branch update.
Yes, I did not have a full report to send out this month, so I just have a few things to touch on. I got an email from the Park Authority earlier with photographs from their documentation of the Mount Gilead Carriage House, so I will be sharing that with you all when I have time to actually open the email. I read the subject, and that is my update.
Hashtag I'm busy.
Yeah. We had a project kickoff meeting earlier this week for the postmodern context and survey that is taking place. Denise, can you remind me of the firm's name?
Robinson Inc.
Robinson
Oh, she
Inc.
had a bullet. That was Emily Ike's original partner. Yeah.
They're locally based. They're in DC. They're a small and mighty team and have done several projects that we thought made a very good fit. It's the reminder, this is a project that is with the cost share program with VDHR. So it's a 50-50 split between the grant funds and DPD funds, and it's managed by VDHR through their consultant program, which is a very big benefit because we're not doing project management, but we are providing a lot of input. So that will be, the kickoff started the project cycle, and it will be wrapped, we're targeting, by the end of July 2025. Maybe August. So it's a pretty aggressive timeline, but like I said, they're a local firm, so travel is pretty easy. And it's a directed survey. They'll be surveying up to 40 postmodern resources throughout the county. We're using the term postmodern to describe the period after the mid-century, so from 1975 to 1995. That is not meant to encompass one specific architectural style, so any architectural style during that time. The focus is primarily going to be on commercial or corporate institutional buildings for the survey, but there's the possibility of other types of resources being surveyed. And they will be developing a historic context for us of postmodern architecture and development in Fairfax County during that time period, as well as a matrix or a rubric that we'll be able to use to evaluate resources from that period after the survey is complete when we're doing development review. So it'll become a planning tool to help us identify resources that are significant that we currently have no tool to do so. So we're very excited about that, and we will keep you all updated as it progresses. The mid-century modern survey, which is the preceding chapter in our project, is almost complete. We're nearing that final draft. So if you have any other feedback, we had set a deadline of earlier this month. you can send it to me and we can try to get it to the state to get it incorporated. That is nearing completion. So we're excited about that too.
Did anybody from us comment?
No.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at it briefly and there's a whole lot of mediocre buildings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you have looked at it, all right.
Yeah, I looked at it, but didn't have time to
Yes.
comment.
I was a little bit like,
But-
oh, I'm supposed to be working right now.
Yeah. What is the date period that MCM survey?
I don't know the beginning, but it's,
Get that information.
yeah.
Yeah, because it says an MCM survey and I'm thinking like, well, is this in or out? And all the buildings that I know, are they in and out?
It's
But I don't-
technically modern, not mid, I'm saying mid-century, it's modern is the project title and survey title.
Yeah, but modern, in Europe, modern means after 1776.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is
We don't have
in,
any Corbusier in Fairfax.
there's a route, the
Had a Breuer.
bookends are in the 50s and 70s. So the postmodern is in this end of the modern era. So we have that overlap represented.
Okay.
And it is the second big survey and project that the state is funding that is looking at resources of the recent past. They're doing a similar one in Virginia Beach right now. So it's a
Hot topic with them.
hot topic. They're excited. They're very passionate about it. Fairfax County is not the only jurisdiction thinking about how to deal with resources of the recent past. So we're excited to have that support. And then the last update is a bit of a personnel update. Yes, which is to say that unfortunately I will be leaving the county in early January because my partner got a promotion that is moving us to Hong Kong.
Okay, wait, no, I'm a whole.
Yeah.
All right.
You dropped that on me last week.
So you'll be working remotely from Hong Kong.
Unfortunately, that is not tenable. So I have very much enjoyed my time working with you all. I was not looking to leave. We're still figuring out all of the personnel arrangements, but the positive news is this is the most staffed our branch has been in over a decade. So we are very much able to share the workload. Jonathan is continuing on as planner 2 right now in support. Laura Kaviclis, who many of you have met and is the planner 3 and works with the History Commission, will also be attending meetings. And then some of that admin work will be split between Laura, Denise, and Jonathan and other people on our team until that position is filled, but it will be advertised.
How you doing over there, Denise?
Yep.
Oh my God, can you send us the link so we can share it?
We share it. Yeah.
We share it, like when your
When you
job is
post the
posted.
job.
Yes.
Yeah, because we can share it to like our alumni board.
You're not even out the door, Daniel, and we're already.
Wait, wanna.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my last ARB meeting.
Cookies, did you know?
What's this? You're at ARB?
So yes, unfortunately, this is my last meeting.
Are you serious?
Mhm.
Good job. Oh, son of a gun.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Yep.
Hong Kong is so different. Like rebuilding temples.
Well, you're absolutely correct that this is the largest staff that the branch has had in quite a long while. It's now close to being fully staffed prior to the Holland Hills HOD coming online.
Yes.
And so you're behind again.
Denise knows it.
And I tell anybody who will listen, I've told my district supervisor that.
This is the last meeting.
Yeah.
It sucks. We appreciate
So
that.
sad. You've been
Yes,
so
so-
wonderful.
You did really good.
Yes.
You
Bittersweet
really
move.
left your
Thank you.
impact on Fairfax County.
Thank you. I appreciate
So
that.
what will happen with the
Come back.
guidelines for all the other HODs?
Yes, so we're trying to get that to a point where it's handed off to traceries before my last day. I am meeting with their project lead next week to check in on that. We have all of the feedback synthesized. There's just a few outstanding questions that are out to different agencies that are informing which things make it into the edits. The staff report project is continuing to move along. We're feeling very confident about the system that we've set up internally, the templates, and we are already thinking about how the submission schedule will have to be adjusted. It's really not feasible right now to accept ARB applications for action 2 weeks before the meeting date and have them all processed. Especially when you consider that staff is not doing any sort of analysis. We just combine them and push them out and then all meet here. So that will be changing, and that's something that we're thinking about too. And of course that, like I've said, will not happen until the design guidelines are adopted. But we're still targeting early 2025 for that to happen even in my absence. So they will be to the consultant, and then the consultant will work them into their schedule, and then they will be coming back to you all to officially stamp.
I think we would all agree you will be sorely missed, and it's been amazing time here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been 2 years.
A little over a year and a half.
I know it feels like too. Came in like a hurricane.
Journalists in Hong Kong.
And you said 5 years, right? Was that?
Yeah, it's up to 5. We're treating it like 5. So AFP.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yep.
We would
Big
not-
move.
we
It's an
would-
exciting
That's a big
change.
move.
Yeah.
We accept gifts.
Is it you and Joe all saying we accept gifts and prizes and things?
Oh, man.
All right. Is there any new business?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you're moving to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I'm not moving to Hong Kong. No, I was just gonna ask us all to congratulate Chris for his wonderful service, but now we have to also congratulate Daniel. I'm sorry that he's leaving, but thank you, Chris, for being our chair for so long. And Daniel, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Have this involved.
Yeah.
That's the gavel.
Thanks.
All right. 4 more
Yeah,
years.
that's a bit.
Oh, what?
Don't you have to?
Oh, I got to end the meeting. All right, if there are,
No, Daniel can't.
That's right.
just refuse, just gonna keep going. Any, no other new business? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved. It's always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Here, you guys can put your cookies trash.